You are listening to Horror Game Developer, My Games Aren't That Scary. By Entril J.I. Novels from Novelfire. Chapter 381, Chaotic Stream 3. Leaning against the back of my chair, I felt mentally drained. It wasn't easy to act like that in front of a lot of people. At least I've managed to achieve my goal. From the start, I had planned on using this opportunity to fan the flames for my upcoming game. This felt like the perfect opportunity, and I didn't waste it. I even acted all over the top on purpose in order to get better engagement. I understood that the crazier one was, the more attention they'd receive. But seriously, it's really too mentally draining. This was the first time I had acted like this. It was a little weird for me. Still, thinking about all the insults that I was probably receiving, I decided not to hop on the internet for a bit. Right, let me just focus on my games. I'll occasionally fan the flames and leave. That was... Breaking the silence and pulling me out of my thoughts, Jamie's voice echoed through the room. That was crazy. He still looked to be in shock from the entire experience. I've never seen so many people live at once. It was complete pandemonium. I can still see the chat spamming at the moment. I didn't think you had that in you, Seth. I looked at the phone and smiled bitterly. What's done is done. Do you think I got the message across? Do you think you got your message across? Ha, are you kidding me? Jamie's voice rose a little. Of course you did. Even now that the stream has ended, people are still talking about you. Clips of the stream are spreading all over the internet. Your name, S, starting to trend, and I wouldn't be surprised if you hit #1 on the island soon. You really went crazy. Oh, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the end of the day, this was something I had done on my own. There was no taking it back. So with a quiet breath, I pulled the phone closer to me. What's done is done. Thank you for helping me. Let me know later when you want to do a stream with me. I'll see if I can come. For now, I'll start focusing my attention on my new game. You should, although I have faith in you, this time you really went too far. If your new game ends up failing then. Jamie didn't continue further, but the meaning behind his words was clear. I could only press my lips together. He was right. My actions were indeed a little reckless, and maybe even childish. In trying to build up hype, I had also put myself in a corner. On the off chance that my game turned out to be terrible, it was highly likely that my career as a game developer would be over. That'd be the same as ending my life. But it had to be done. I couldn't waste this opportunity, especially with the upcoming Fourth Order mission. I needed as much money as possible, which was why I went with this route. I wanted to benefit the most from this entire fiasco. A heavy weight pressed on my shoulders when thinking about it. I had always worked under a certain amount of pressure when creating my games, but never before had the weight of their outcome felt so crushing. This was really both my career and my life on the line. Taking another deep breath, I looked at my phone for the last time before standing up. I'll contact you later. For now, I'll start working on my new project. All right, best of luck. I'll be cheering for you. Let me know if you need anything. I will. I hung up shortly after, letting the silence take over. Placing both of my hands on the table, I stood there in silence for a few seconds before turning my gaze toward the studio. In the end, I stopped hesitating and began working on my new project. Now that things had turned out this way, there was no time to waste. The stream ended up making waves across the entire island. While no major news outlet picked up on it, many smaller online websites and magazines picked up on the conflict between Seth and Nightmare Forge Studios. Thief, I stole a pen. Seth Thorne denies claims and even starts an insult war with one of the most popular streamers online. Disgraceful behavior from indie developer Seth Thorne. War of the Developers, bold claim from a rookie developer. I will create a better game in less than 3 months. Will such claims hold true? The more time passed, the more the news seemed to gain traction. By now, the drama had spread across the entire island, with clips circulating on the internet, some of which had even reached over 1 million views. In particular, a certain clip was making the rounds on the internet. Is this really the guy who's saying all of this nonsense? You look like you were drawn with my left hand. The clip started to go viral, with many sharing and reposting the video. His previous clips started to resurface, from the lunatic with the sunglasses to the maniac with the sunglasses. The more his videos started to surface, the more his outbursts started to make sense. He really was a lunatic. Memes began to form around that specific video, and the man in question, Samurai71, soon responded. Samurai71, what do I care about the video? I was polite with him the entire time. Evident from his nickname, he's just a lunatic who thinks he can create games. I was just sharing my objective view about his game. None of the statements that I've made is wrong. His games are objectively horrible, and if you don't believe me, you can watch my stream as I play his games. Regarding the game he promised in 3 months, I've got no hopes on it. It's very likely going to be trash and full of bugs. He didn't hold back at all, completely trashing Seth's games and character. At the same time, he used the opportunity to promote his streams, where he played Seth's games and spent the entire time criticizing them. He didn't hold back at all, trashing the entire system from start to finish. His stream had a significant impact, and Seth's game ratings started to plummet, dropping from mostly positive to mostly negative. Hee fucking bastard. I'll make sure your newest game will be even worse. Shouldn't have messed with me. Had you been more humble, none of this would have happened. Samurai71 spent the entire time gloating, fanning the flames, and driving the games to be review-bombed. He tried to provoke Seth a couple of more times, but he received no word from him. I guess he ran away. Everyone shared the same sentiment. In the end, after all his grandiose talk, he ended up running away with his tail tucked between his legs. At the same time, severed Stars Guild. PFTTTT. Coffee flew all over. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you suddenly spitting up your coffee? The hell? Despite the protests from those around him, Kyle's face remained blank as he stared at the phone before him, his mouth hanging open in shock. What's up with you? You're acting weird. Is everything all right? Eventually, Zoe stepped closer to Kyle, trying to get a better look at what had him reacting this way. The moment she did, her expression froze. Rowan experienced the same. Both of them were locked in shock as they stared at the clip playing on Kyle's phone. Seeing Seth and his sudden outburst, neither of the three was able to react. Eventually, he's lost it. He's completely lost it. He's basically copying the section chief. Oh God. All three turned heads to face Seth's office. They all rushed to it not long after, extremely worried. Chapter 382, Public Enemy 1. I've already got a layout for the new game. The setting will take place inside a hotel, and it'll revolve around a multi-layered puzzle that the player must solve to progress. The main character will be a receptionist whose job is to welcome guests. The catch, however, is that not everyone who enters the hotel is human. The player's goal will be to figure out who among them is normal and who is. The moment I entered the studio, I got straight to work. I already had a general outline of the game I wanted to create, so I wasted no time sharing my ideas with my new team members. My team was comprised of 3 members, Noah, Joseph, and Ryan. I had previously worked with them in the past, and as such, they were somewhat accustomed to my type of work. Let me guess, you want us to improve on the design board of the game. Noah spoke, his ginger hair a little longer than I remembered. Strands fell over his forehead, unkempt and uneven, giving him a rougher look than before. At the very least, it was messier than back then. It was a little odd, considering how his career was picking up. That's not quite it. I can take care of the design board. All I will need you guys to do is the same thing as last time. Which is, optimize the game. Make sure that there are no bugs, the voices and movements sync. Make sure that everything checks out and fix anything that doesn't work out. That's not hard to do. Ryan commented from the side, his arms crossed as he leaned back on a chair. Pulling his hood down to reveal his dark hair and green eyes, he continued. However, in order for us to start, we need to have a framework to work with. I don't think that a general idea of how the game should work will do. I'm particularly worried about the world creation aspect. I feel like that might take us a while. He's right. Joseph, the last person in the group, nodded, agreeing with Ryan. He was the oldest looking of the group, with short blonde hair and blue eyes. His beard, which had previously been unkempt, was better trimmed. He brought a hand to his chin, thinking for a moment before speaking. I like the concept of the game so far, he said, his tone even, but it still needs some refining. Of course, we won't interfere with how you want to build it, but we'll need at least something to start from, something tangible for us to work with. If you'd like, we can begin designing the world. I'm no expert in world building, but I can at least set up a framework. There's no need for that. I could see their worries, and while they had some merit to them, it wasn't like I hadn't thought of them. Good thing I haven't been wasting my time lately. Moving towards the monitor of my PC, I booted it up. Go to your workstations. I'll send you the file of the world. I've spent the last bit of time building it. Tell me how you feel about it. What, really? You actually did it, alone. Let me see. I could sense the shock from the voices of all three, and it was understandable. One of the hardest aspects of game design was the creation of the world, especially a VR-related one. 3D objects needed to be created from scratch. Their measurements needed to be taken, and they also needed to be optimized for the world. The feel, the sound. There was a lot of work needed just for one material. Of course, their engine also has objects that can be used, but those are the most basic of materials. Most studios have their own items that they've copyrighted. Thankfully, I had a certain system. It made my life so much easier, and as such, I was able to build an entire world from scratch. Of course, it wasn't cheap, but the end result was more than worth the price that I had paid. Holy crap. This is... Wait, you really built this yourself? 3 pairs of eyes turned to me at once, all staring like I was some kind of monster. I merely laughed to myself in response. This should be enough, right? Yes, it's more than enough. Noah replied, his mouse dragging across the computer screen as he analyzed the 3D modeling of the hotel. He gave it a proper look before taking out a pen and jotting down several things on a blank piece of paper. I'll first start by creating the main character. I'll make sure to properly integrate it with the world, and I'll also create the guests. How do you want the game to play out? He turned his attention towards me. Seeing his focused expression, I smiled. I've yet to properly think about how the game will play out, but in short, as I mentioned before, the main character will be a receptionist who welcomes guests. He'll have to decide whether to let them in or not. He can't reject too many people, and he'll also have to make sure he keeps the guests he lets in checked with the cameras. If he can determine that they're not human, he lets them out. I see. Noah jotted everything down before suddenly pausing. Oh, right. He looked back at me. I remember how you mentioned in the email that you want to link your previous games with this one. Will this still be the case? Yes, it will be. This still hadn't changed. I was planning on making sure that all my games were connected. I wanted to build a great climax for when all my games fused in one. I'll still need to properly think about how to link it well. Previously, I had converted my old game into VR, planning on releasing it soon in order to make some money, but that no longer seemed possible. At least not yet. I needed to deal with Nightmare Forge Studios first. Oh, what a pain. For now, focus on creating the characters. We have time. I'll think of the core mechanics and scope of the game. If you guys have any ideas, feel free to share them with me. For now, I'll take care of something else. Understood, we'll get to work immediately. The 3 immediately got to work, the sound of the keyboard keys pressing echoing loudly. I stared at the trio before moving out of the classroom and onto the main hall. I looked around before heading towards the room next door. Clank. The room was equally as big as the main classroom, but as opposed to the previous room, this entire place was covered with soundproof material alongside many different instruments. Locking the door behind me, I tapped my foot on the ground. Come out. Several shadows appeared all at once. Myrle, Mr. Jingles, the Realm Walker, and finally the conductor. This. As if sensing something, the conductor's lips pulled into a smile as it looked around. I didn't waste a single second and pointed at the instruments all over. Each of you take an instrument. Several notifications appeared before my eyes, but I ignored them and headed towards the piano, popping up the lid and pressing my hands on the keys. I didn't have any plans on creating a band with my own anomalies, but thinking about everything that has happened, I guess I have no choice. Gritting my teeth, I took out my phone and checked several comments that I had saved beforehand. Isn't he too arrogant, creating a game in 3 months? This is what happens when you have too much ego. You promise to do things that you aren't capable of. It's a pity, he was talented, but he's let his ego get the worst of him. He'll be completely ousted from the gaming community after this. Clenching my phone, I looked at the others. Get ready, we're going to be making a lot of music from this day forward. I wasn't going to be holding back. I have a high ego, doing things that I'm not capable of. Fine, I'll show you exactly how high my ego can be. I thrived on seeing people scream. However, I had always held back a little. But after this, I didn't plan on holding back any longer. Start. I pressed my hands down, a loud tune filling the air. Make sure you all keep up. Chapter 383, Public Enemy 2. The moment Seth began to work on his game, he dedicated his entire attention to it. From morning until night, he would work on it endlessly. The only times he would stop would be when it was just near the time to reach the gate's closing time. Of course, in such times, he also attended his duties as squad leader. However, because of how busy he was, he delegated most of his tasks to Joanna, who took over without any qualms. Thankfully, Ariel remained the same the entire time. While Seth kept a close watch on her, she didn't act out of order and simply followed orders without any issue. The squad managed to get used to her rather quickly, but despite this, nobody was ever able to get close to her. This was mainly due to her inability to show much emotion or reaction. She was more like a robot. Still, her performance was quite noteworthy. With her on the team, the squad was able to clear several higher-ranked gates, even going as far as clearing a C-ranked gate, despite the clearance rate. Things improved even further the moment Sarah returned. It took her a moment to get adjusted to things, but the moment she returned, the team performed even better, bringing consistent results every week. The team was thriving, and Seth was able to focus on his games without any qualms. Even the guild master didn't bother him, he just let him do his thing. This made things a lot easier for Seth. Of course, his online outbursts didn't go unnoticed by the people within the guild. The videos were shared everywhere, and as such, it was hard for anyone not to see them. Seth gained a certain infamy within the guild. I always thought he was quiet, but I didn't think he was like this. I guess he really is a lunatic. Does Kyle really hang out with someone like this? It seems a little crazy to me. He's a maniac. His infamy didn't just stop at the guild. Certain individuals were making sure that nobody forgot about his videos and words. Samurai71, check out my latest video. In here, I will be breaking down all the flaws with the games developed by the indie developer. I'll show you how to beat it and how unoriginal his games are. Nightmare Forge Official. Regarding the allegations, we have decided not to pursue legal action, not due to any lack of ability to do so, but rather as a conscious choice to take the higher ground. It is truly disappointing and unexpected that he would conduct himself in such a manner. As the saying goes, give someone an inch and they'll take a mile. Seth's lack of response in regard to the streamer and studio became almost a talking point amongst the community, many claiming that he had run away, while others were simply saying that he didn't reply because he couldn't reply. He started to lose a lot of followers as a result, from nearly reaching 100,000 to dropping all the way to 50,000 followers. His downfall was quite evident. It makes sense. You can almost see the similarities in certain aspects. It's quite disappointing considering how I used to be a fan. I was a really big fan of him. Who would have thought he was like this? He's all talk. His new game will end up flopping in the end. How long until the new game releases? He's been rather quiet. Do you think he's given up on it? The talk never truly stopped. This was one of the rare few dramas that occurred within the island, involving a large studio, a large streamer, and an indie developer. A lot of people were naturally attracted to such drama. And just when everyone thought that things were starting to cool down. Seth Thorne, 704. The all-quiet Seth had finally made a statement. However, unlike how everyone expected, the statement only stated one thing. A date. Nobody knew what it meant, but certain ideas started to fill the minds of many of the people on the internet. Is this the announcement of his new game? He didn't just run away. He's really releasing a new game. This isn't a joke, right? Is this what he's been doing the entire time? He can't be serious. I bet it's going to be another one of his little computer games. I can bet my entire net worth it's going to be a flop. The comments were ruthless. None of them believed in Seth. But as if that wasn't enough. Samurai71, I will be the first one to try the game when it comes out. None of you needs to buy the game. Let me play it for you. This way you will be able to save a lot of money. Nightmare Forge Official. We sincerely hope that the individual in question refrains from using our proprietary developer software, as has occurred in the past. Several of these programs are already protected under our copyrights, following prior instances of unauthorized use. Should the individual choose to use our software without permission again, we will have no choice but to pursue legal action. One more ruthless than the other. Nobody was giving Seth any chance to breathe. They were all hounding him while he was down. And yet, What do you say? Have you finally accepted the fact that you're scared of failure? The man in question appeared to be completely indifferent to all the noise that was happening outside. Staring at the woman who sat before him, he looked at the small notepad in front of him. Given how you've been showing up consistently every week, I can see that you've seen the problems that lie within you. The issue stems from the fact that you've experienced your first failure during the ranked gate a while back. I can see that you're still struggling to get over it, but you have to. You of all people should understand how important the mind is in our field. Clara listened to Seth's words in silence, her brows furrowing and her head lowering. It was as Seth said. After months of battling with her mental demons, she came to realize that the main reason why she was acting like this was due to her sudden experience with failure. In the past, she had been deemed the main star of the guild. An unshakable soldier who cut through all gates without any issues. She had never once experienced true failure like that gate. That was the first time she had ever felt such a profound sense of helplessness, and every time she thought about that moment, her mind would go blank. There's nothing wrong with experiencing failure. Failing means that you're not perfect. You can't go lower than failure. You can only go up unless you choose to remain down there. The choice is all up to you. There was something magnetic about Seth's words that made her come back to him each time. It was only when she experienced his sessions that she'd feel more at peace with the past. But it's still not enough. She was improving, but not fast enough. Clara wanted to get back on the field, but her recovery was too slow. Far too slow. If only. Let's try something new today. Clara raised her head and looked at Seth in surprise. Not minding her gaze, Seth took out his phone and placed it on the table in front of him. From what I'm understanding, failure isn't the only thing that is holding you back. Anything that reminds you of that incident is also a great cause. In that case, let's try listening to something of a similar wavelength. Let's see how you react. Seth pressed play right after. Zing. A long, dragging violin sound echoed right after, stretching through the air and filling the entire room. The moment Clara heard the tune, she started to shudder, her expression paling. There was something about the tune that was making her shudder, and as the tune carried on, the haunting sensation that she had previously felt became more and more prominent, the hair at the back of her neck standing and her eyes widening. Unknowingly, her palms started to sweat. Such sensation only grew as more instruments began to join in. But what truly set her off was the soft voice that echoed shortly after. It was soft, almost childlike, but the moment it appeared, Clara felt her heart coming to a stop. This. She looked at Seth. What sort of music was this? Wham! Hand slammed against the piano, causing her to flinch. Just what is this? Chapter 384, The Final Call 1. There are 2 days left before launch. Checking the date and time, I sat back in my chair and drummed my fingers over the table. The game was practically done, only requiring a few tweaks. In all honesty, I was quite nervous. I couldn't guarantee that my game was going to be a success. They say all publicity is good publicity, but I may have gone a little overboard this time. Taking out my phone and checking out the comments that were flooding my page, I winced at the number of hate comments that I was receiving. A lot of them belonged to Samurai 71's fan club, but there were also several that belonged to outsiders. In particular, people who belonged to other guilds and just people who didn't find my games scary at all. Even now, the ratings of my previous games were dropping. Still, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The more people who played my previous games, the better. This was because there were a lot of connections between the 3 games. I was planning something big, and connecting all 3 games was going to be important. I might even go as far as releasing the VR versions of my old games, alongside the new game. I had added quite a few changes in order to make the game sync. It might be hard, but not impossible. There was still something more pressing at the moment. Click, click, click. Come on, come on, come on. I continued to refresh the page on my computer screen. Seeing no changes, I started to grow impatient. I've applied for this a while ago, come on. Right now, I was waiting to get news back regarding the music of my game. It was an original piece that I had created with the conductor and everyone else. In order not to make the same mistake as last time, I decided to send it over to the copyright department. Who would have thought that they'd be so slow? It's been almost 2 weeks. Just what is taking them so long? I had even paid them around $1,000 to make it faster. Otherwise, it would usually take several months. However, they were being unusually slow. It can't be that the music is making them go mad, right? The thought made my breath pause, but I quickly shook my head. No, that's not possible. I had specifically made sure to send them a copy that didn't have any effect. This was so that it wouldn't accidentally cause someone to throw themselves out of the window. Not that the effect was that strong anyway. At least that's what the conductor promised me. I licked my lips. On second thought, trusting the words of the conductor wasn't exactly the best thing to do. It should be fine. Yeah, it should be fine. I closed down the laptop and blankly stared at the painting before me. Unlike usual, Myrle didn't show up the moment I looked at the painting. She was currently throwing a tantrum, feeling betrayed by what I had done with her. The same was true for the Realmwalker and Mr. Jingles. They were all on strike. The only one who was happy was the conductor. Sorry, but it had to be done. This was all for my newest gam. TRR, TRR. A sudden vibration shattered my thoughts, echoing within the silence of the room as I slowly turned my attention towards the side of the desk, where a certain flip phone appeared. TRR, TRR. Hearing it ring again, I felt my breathing quicken slightly. Oh shit. Unknown caller. I had been waiting for quite some time for the next phone call. Time was slowly running out for the deadline of the quest, and it appeared as though the final phone call had arrived. TRR, TRR. Hearing it ring again, I took a deep breath before reaching out for it. Let's get this over with. I had gathered enough evidence to know where the cult was, but it was best to pick up more information so that I wouldn't be blindsided. Who? Taking another deep breath, trying to shake the nervousness away, I picked up the call. The room instantly chilled. The sound of heavy breathing echoed from the other side of the phone as I stood still, waiting for my surroundings to change like they usually did. But something was different this time. Besides the cold, there were no real apparent changes to my surroundings. My heart tensed, feeling that something was wrong. And then, everywhere, a hoarse voice echoed from the speakers of the phone. It sounded tired, almost desperate, as if they were struggling just to get the words out. Eyes everywhere. I didn't need to see to imagine what was happening, as I suddenly felt as though a series of eyes were watching me, all latched onto the surroundings of the room, staring down on me. My throat tightened and my hands shook. There, looking at me from every direction, it's all I can see. I don't know what's going on, but there's no way out for me. This is it for me. I could feel a certain level of acceptance in the voice, as though the person the voice belonged to had finally accepted their fate. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, the man started to count. 9, 10, 11. I didn't need to guess to know what he was counting. The eyes. He was counting the eyes. 31, 32, 33. A heavy tension lingered across my room as he continued to count. For some reason, my heart started to beat faster, and cold sweat started to pool down my back. 54, 55, 56. It was just a simple countdown, and yet, why did it feel so tense? 68, 69, 70, 71. I waited for him to continue counting, but no other number came after. 71. Such was the final number. The sound of a shaky breath echoed across the room. Was it mine or was it his? I wasn't so sure anymore, feeling a strange tension spreading across my blood and bones. It's that number, again. I had done a lot of research regarding that number over the past months, but I hadn't been able to get a proper answer. All I managed to see was useless information and horoscopes. But what exactly was that number? Why did it keep popping up? The more I thought about the number, the heavier the stifling weight in my chest grew. It pressed down hard, almost digging into me, and as I swallowed quietly, the voice from the phone echoed again. But this time it was different. The voice, it was hoarser than before, almost sinister. Every hair on my body stood on end. Hello. The back of my neck suddenly tingled. A warm breath brushed against my skin from behind, sending a sharp chill through me and making me freeze completely. That. So many faces, so many fears. I wear them all and none are mine. Slowly my head turned towards my phone. It was off. The air suddenly seemed to have been sucked away from my surroundings as my back tingled once more. a warm breath brushing against my neck. Who am I? Who was the person standing behind me? Chapter 385, The Final Call 2. I didn't move my head at all. I couldn't move my head at all. Feeling the warm breath against my neck, it was like being dragged into the deepest part of the ocean, lungs tight, air slipping away, every sound swallowed by the pressure around me. I felt completely suffocated. Who is standing behind me? Whatever it was, I could feel a sinister energy coming from it. It was far more sinister than anything I had ever encountered, and every second that passed felt as though it dragged on for hours. Before I knew it, my clothes were entirely soaked in my sweat. To make matters even worse, I could hardly feel my summons at all. Myrle, Mr. Jingles, the Realm Walker, and even the conductor. I couldn't feel anything. How? I was in a state of complete shock. A sense of helplessness I had never felt before washed over me as the warm breath brushed against the back of my neck once more, causing me to freeze. But then, as though it had never been there in the first place, the breath vanished, and the heavy tension that lingered in the room faded completely. Despite this, I kept my eyes locked ahead. I didn't dare turn my head. Tick-tock. The tick of the clock continued to echo across the room, every tick matching the rhythm of my heart as I tried to calm it down. However, despite a good time passing, my heart never calmed down. It only increased. My chest trembled, and so did my lips. Soon, however, I started to feel my connection with the others resurface, and that was when I finally mustered up the courage to look around, turning my head slowly and feeling each movement incredibly stiff. My stomach churned the moment I turned around and caught sight of what was on the blank wall behind me. Marked in fresh red paint, I saw a sigil. It was one that I had seen in the past, or at least parts of it. A circle framed the entire thing, rough and uneven, with two lines cutting through the center, one vertical, one bent slightly to the left. Small hooks branched off the lower edge, curling inward like they were reaching for something. Near the top, a pair of thin arcs crossed over one another, almost forming eyes, though not quite. It was hard to describe, but the moment I caught sight of the sigil, it was as if something in my mind clicked. Something within me started to churn. I felt a sudden throb coming from my mind. Arg. Pain, unlike anything I had ever felt before, invaded every corner of my mind, causing my vision to go white for a split second. Arg. Despite my best attempts at trying to hold my voice, I found myself unable to. The pain was intense. It took over every corner of my mind and left me completely breathless. Clank. I started to knock things off the table, my hands reaching out for my head. Hurts, it hurts. I didn't know what was going on, but I could hardly process my own thoughts. The only thing that was consuming my mind was the pain that had suddenly taken over me. Hurts. All I felt was pain. All I saw was white. I could hardly process what was around me as I continued to knock everything that was around me. And just when I thought the pain had reached a point where I could hardly contain it, something flashed in my mind. An image. Scribble. A book. A pen writing on the book. From a circle to the strange patterns. Despite the pain, I could recognize the patterns almost immediately. That's, please help me, please. A voice whispered in the air. A voice that I was all too familiar with. My voice. I can't live like this anymore. I beseech you, black, help me. Hallelujah. A scream ripped through my lungs, and everything faded at once. By the time I regained my bearings, I found myself back in my own office, the entire place a mess as I sat alone, sweat pooling down my forehead. What? Looking back, the sigil was gone. It was almost as if it had never been there in the first place, and as I looked at the door, I didn't see anyone moving towards it. I was almost sure I had caused a lot of noise. Did no one notice? That's not what's important. Reaching for my drawer, I rummaged through the mess that it was before pulling out a certain pill box. Popping the contents in my mouth, I finally started to feel better as I leaned back against the chair, feeling all the energy drain away from me. For the first time in a while, the surroundings fell silent. I sat in a daze, blankly staring at the ceiling. Despite the wall being black, I could see a certain sigil on the blank wall. It was as if my mind was reconstructing the image, making sure that I wouldn't forget it. What was that? I thought back to the sigil and vision that I had just experienced. It felt like some sort of distant past. That voice was also mine, but why? Why couldn't I recall a single thing? I know that's me, but I don't ever remember doing something like that. Something is not adding up. Could my memory of that incident have been erased? And what was the last sentence? It was blacked out, but I could distinctly make out the first two words. Duh. A name of sorts. Despite the heavy throbbing of my mind, I still managed to force myself to reach for my phone and type out everything that I knew into the browser. 71 name starts with duh. I tried to put everything that I knew and had found out. I even went as far as drawing the sigil by hand and using a reverse image search to get something. But nothing. I wasn't able to find a single thing. Is there really nothing? I tried again, but the result was the same. There was nothing that I could find on the web that was even closely related to the things that I wanted to find out. I tried a couple of dozen more times, even going as far as using the guild database, but despite doing everything within my power, I wasn't able to find anything at all. Sitting blankly in my seat, I looked at my phone. A certain thought popped into my mind. Should I ask the guild master? I hadn't been in much contact with the guild master ever since he had helped me evolve my Dreamwalker into a Realmwalker. He seemed to have understood my current predicament with my game and had left me alone. But, is it possible for me to ask him? I knew the answer at heart. Yes, it was possible. However, I also knew that asking wouldn't come cheap. There was a price in asking, and I wasn't so sure I was willing to pay it. But then again, I was that desperate. After all, this seemed to be the greatest clue I had received regarding the reason behind the sudden shift in the world, and the truth behind everything. Huh? I let out a long breath, covering my face with both hands. What should I do? Chapter 386, Interference 1. Scribble, scribble. I can't live like this anymore. I beseech you, black, help me. Haha. I awoke with a scream. A blank ceiling greeted my sight as I sat up in my bed, feeling my breath come out in ragged gasps. Huh. My mind throbbed as I held onto my forehead. Fuck. I felt like utter shit. In spite of a day passing since the incident with the phone call, the images of what had happened continued to haunt me. They persisted in my thoughts and dreams, making it impossible for me to catch more than a couple of hours of sleep. Even if I were to return to my bed right now, I was certain that I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. It was almost as if it were a curse. I can't live like this anymore. There had been times in the past when I used to get little to no sleep, but it had never been this extreme. I felt haggard, and my mind was constantly hazy. Plop. The only relief that I had was the pills that I had gotten from the shop. For just brief moments, they relieved a lot of my symptoms. What time is it? I checked my watch. It was still 3:00 a.m. It was very early in the morning. Knowing that I wouldn't be able to sleep, I got off the bed and turned on the light, heading to the bathroom to wash my face and wake myself up. But the moment I did, I paused. I stared at the reflection that greeted me. Is this me? The entity that greeted me in the reflection felt foreign to me. My eyes were extremely dark, and the dark circles beneath were more glaring than ever. I could even see that the tone of my skin was extremely pale, and for just a second I almost thought I was looking at a ghost. This is pretty bad. I looked like someone suffering from a terminal disease. No, I am suffering from a terminal disease. Shaha. Opening the tap, I calmly washed my face. The situation was dire, but I still remained calm. I could more or less tell the reason for my current situation and also knew how to stop it. I need to get going with the cult mission. Thankfully, I was almost ready. But more importantly, there was another thing that I needed to handle. Today, my new game is going to be released. Click, click, click. The moment I headed to my office and entered the studio, I was greeted by the repetitive sound of keyboards clicking. I checked the time. It was around 8:00 a.m. Looking ahead and seeing my team members working, I felt gratified. While I still felt like shit, popping a few more pills into my system, I was able to function properly. Besides the small headache that lingered at the back of my mind, I felt completely normal. When did you guys get here? Not too long ago, Noah replied, his attention focused on the keyboard in front of him. Since you didn't allow any of us to work overnight, we decided to come at the earliest possible time in order to add the finishing touches to the game. We're trying to see if there are any bugs and glitches that we may need to fix before it's too late. Doc has also approved of the game. We can launch at any moment. That's good. It usually took a couple of weeks for a game to be released. One had to send the game for review in advance before getting Doc's approval in order to send. Given how it had been approved, we could now launch at any given time. I headed towards my desk and booted up the developer system. Because of my limited budget, I wasn't able to add any additional software to the game. In fact, I even removed a couple of software that had been present in my past games. This wasn't an easy decision to make, but that didn't matter. There's no need to add any new software. The main star of the show will be something else entirely. By something else entirely, I meant the music track that I had added, worked on with the conductor and the others. This was the key to everything. Not just because of the effect provided by the conductor, but because of the combined effect of Mr. Jingles and Myrle. Indeed, the music alone had 3 different effects. This was no simple piece. Nobody can complain that I stole as well since I've just gotten the approval for the copyright. Finally, after a couple of weeks of waiting, I had the official confirmation that the music was mine. There was no way for Nightmare Forge Studios to say anything about it. Taking out my phone, I immediately looked through my socials. As expected, it wasn't pretty. Who here is hyped for the new game that is coming out? What, don't tell me you're actually planning on wasting your money on that crap. Just watch it from streams. There's no way I'm wasting money on crap like that. I bet it's gonna be way worse than Death Company. Speaking of Death Company, I heard that there's a new patch coming out today. Holy shit, you're right, ha, how fucking sinister. They're releasing it on the same day that the game is coming out. They're doing it on purpose. Are you sure it's on purpose? Nobody was going to buy the game anyway. To say it wasn't pretty was an understatement. The comments were utterly ruthless. A lot of the people were completely dismissing my games, with some even going as far as encouraging people not to buy the game. The comment section was heated, and I was also starting to get heated reading it. But at the same time, 07/04/21, the date of my announcement was starting to trend. It wasn't anywhere near the top, but it was around the 21st spot. This was good in my opinion. The more people talked about it, the more interest there was. I could see how my entire debacle from a few months back had helped keep the game relevant until the launch date. Yeah, there's no need to be too worried. I know the game better than anyone else. This is not just a computer game, but a VR one. The graphics are also not some low-level graphics, with the game developer helping me create the best setting possible. Even the noise and texture are incredibly realistic. There's just no way for the game to be a flop. I am extremely confident. I wasn't the only person who was confident in the product. I'm almost done, hee. Same here, I can't wait for the game to be released. I can't wait to see what sort of reaction the trolls will show online. I bet they'll be scared out of their wits. Noah, Joseph, and Ryan were all extremely excited. Having worked on the game for the past few months with me, they were all confident in the product. I felt even better when seeing them like this, and just as I put my phone away, they all stopped moving at the same time, their heads turning in my direction. Are you guys done? Yes, it's completed. I'm also done. Same with me, we've also got Doc's approval. They have validated the game. Good. I stood up, taking a deep breath and calming my racing heart. Checking the time, I looked back at them. Officially launched the game. But, what the... The launch wasn't as smooth as previously anticipated. Turning my attention towards the others, I saw Noah look at me in shock. The game, he spoke, his voice shaky, it's been blocked from launching. Chapter 387, Interference 2. Blocked? What do you mean by blocked? Have a look. Noah turned the monitor in front of him, displaying a large notification. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the game you are attempting to launch is temporarily unavailable. Our team is actively working to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. If you require further assistance, please contact us at support@doc.com. We appreciate your understanding and patience. I read the notification once, twice, 3 times. The more I read it, the colder my heart grew. Eventually, I closed my eyes and sat back down in my seat. Boss, what should we do? No, give me a second, let me just try again. What just happened? Why are they blocking our game from launching? This doesn't make sense. Let me quickly contact them. No, let me call them. The entire studio was a mess. Everyone quickly moved to do their own thing. I just remained seated, absorbing the chaos around me. Honestly, I didn't feel very sad. Rather, I felt a boiling rage that simply wouldn't die down. I had been feeling like this quite a lot lately, but this was the first time that I felt such anger that my hands were twitching. Relax, calm down. I kept telling myself to keep calm, to not explode. However, maybe because of the nightmare, the cognitive shard, or the constant stress I'd been under for the past few months, something in my mind just snapped. Snap. When I opened my eyes again, everyone in the studio was gone. Only I remained. Everyone had gone out to handle the aftermath of the situation. My gaze fell to my shadow, where a faint shape stirred within it. As I watched it move, I activated my second node. Trait transfer. I watched as my entire body began to darken, turning pitch black from head to toe. The lights around me flared, growing painfully bright, and before I could react, I felt myself slowly sinking into the floor. A certain cold gripped me as the surroundings changed, and soon, I found myself sitting in the same seat again. This time, however, the world felt different. Everything around me looked exactly the same and yet different. Looking around, I saw Myrle, the conductor, and Mr. Jingles looking at me. This was when I knew. I was in the anomaly realm. Standing up from my seat, I headed towards the door. There was a certain place that I had to be. Space. Thank you very much. I owe you this favor. Please don't worry. I can guarantee you that you won't be implicated in all of this. Yes, please don't worry. Thank you again. A voice echoed quietly within a large office. With a kind smile, Theodore, the CEO of Nightmare Forge Studios, talked on the phone with a certain figure. He kept his tone polite the entire time, his hand holding onto the phone very carefully. I'll take care of this matter quickly. Please don't worry. Theodore hung up the phone shortly after, the smile wiping off his face. Making sure the phone call was off, he turned his attention towards the other figure that stood in the office. It should be done. That's great news to hear. Daniel, the CEO's direct assistant, smiled. With this, it should be hard for him to get the game released. At the very least, it should be impossible for him to release the game in the upcoming weeks. This should halt his momentum further. That's the plan. The smile finally returned to the CEO's face, his back leaning against the chair as he chuckled. Hers. He wasn't a CEO for nothing. Although Nightmare Forge Studios wasn't exactly the biggest gaming studio, they were still relatively big. In that regard, most of it was due to the CEO's connections. He was well acquainted with the regional head of DOC. As a result, one quick call and he was able to halt the release of Seth's game. His plan was obvious: to use this as leverage in order to get Seth to hand over the programs. Given the amount of money he had invested in the game, he was certain that he was running dry. The more the launch of the game, the more he'd operate at a loss. He was bound to cave into their demands sooner or later. Of that he was sure. Here, taking out a small USB from his deck, he passed it across the table. This is a copy of the game that I've managed to acquire from the station head. Try to see how the game is and see if you can alter it a bit. Make sure that when it launches, it'll be the worst game that people can play. The CEO's smile grew even more arrogant as Daniel's lips curved into a faint grin, his eyes lingering on the USB. Picking it up, he nodded. I'll do so immediately. He left shortly after that. Staring at the door, Theodore didn't stop there. He focused his attention on his monitor and quickly drafted an email. To BUA, Bureau of Unusual Affairs. Attached to this email is a certain game. I'm reaching out because I believe there's something suspicious about this product. While I don't usually jump to conclusions, I've noticed something strange about the soundtrack. Please look into it and make sure that. It didn't take long for the CEO to draft the email quickly. Hers. The occasional laugh escaped his lips as he stared at the email. He wasn't planning on sending it immediately, but he was surely going to use it once Seth contacted him. Theodore wasn't stupid. Neither was the BUA. He could easily tell that there was some sort of foul play in the kid's game. I did see that he's been making a name for himself in one of the guilds. I'm sure he must have used some trick from there. Theodore made sure to report everything. This was just how he was. It was also how he had managed to survive in this industry for so long. His hands weren't clean. There had been many other people he had done similar things to in the past. This was all so that he could propel the company to greater heights. Hers. He laughed once more. Yes, this is all for the compa. This is the next step that you're planning on taking. A cold voice sliced through the silence, making the CEO freeze in place. The temperature in the room dropped sharply as the shadows around the CEO began to twist and writhe. From the reflection in the glass pane of his wardrobe, he caught a glimpse of a dark figure standing right behind him. The CEO's entire body shuddered at the sight. But it was too late. A hand came, grasping against the back of his neck. Very well. A cold voice followed right after. I was trying too hard to keep it civil. I realized that I shouldn't be like this. I'm too much of a pushover for situations like these. His grip over the CEO's neck tightened, his voice growing colder. It's best to get rid of the problem at once. Chapter 388, Interference 3. The cold chill within the room intensified. Theodore felt the grasp at the back of his neck intensify, his breathing growing heavier with each passing second. Why you? His mind raced, all sorts of thoughts crossing his mind. What's going on? What's happening? Why is this happening? It felt as though his entire body had been plunged into the depths of the ocean, sinking deeper and deeper as the pressure closed in and the cold gnawed at him from every direction. Isaiah. This was the last thing that I wanted to do. The cold voice whispered in the air once more, the grip over the CEO's neck tightening further, almost causing him to squirm in pain. I kept telling myself that I could have resolved this amicably, that so long as my new game comes out I'd be able to resolve everything. But the voice stopped, and the chill spreading across the room intensified. But that wasn't what grabbed the CEO's attention. No, it was his words. New game. His mind reeled, and realization dawned on him. It's a you. His gaze fell on the glass plane of his cupboard once more, and it was there that he realized the shadow that had appeared behind him had changed completely, turning into a figure he knew all too well. The previous fear that he had been experiencing faded. What the hell are you doing? Do you know that this is assault? I've got cameras arranged here. You're done. I'm telling you that you're done. Q, quiet. Seth's voice came out hoarser. Something about his tone felt off, and the CEO picked it up immediately. Is he sick? His voice. It didn't sound normal. It sounded like someone who was sick with a cold. Whatever the case was, he was no longer scared. This was the pushover, Seth. He knew that this was all just for show. He was probably trying to threaten him with some sort of bullshit ability he had learned at the guild. Huh? As if he'd be scared of something like this. Just wait until I report you to the BUA. I'll make sure to end your career in the guild industry as well. Twitch. With a sudden twitch of his head, Seth stared at the CEO. He could almost sense what the CEO was thinking, and his grip over the back of his neck started to loosen up. Feeling this, the CEO smirked. I knew it, he's all bark and no bite, a pushover until the end. Seth's grip over the CEO continued to loosen until he eventually fully let go of the CEO's neck. He moved away shortly after. It looks like you've finally come to your senses. Feeling the grip disappear completely, the CEO adjusted his clothes and stood up straight once more, his lips pulling into a smirk. I'm sure you've realized just how badly you fucked up with all of this. How about this? I'll make a deal with you. Give me the programs and I won't report you to the BUA for what you've done. He only mentioned the BUA because he had already noted in his mind that he was going to make sure that Seth would never step into the gaming industry. This was the price he had to pay for crossing the line. But who am I kidding? I'll also make sure he gets reported to the BUA. The CEO was no kind person. He wasn't going to let anyone who had crossed him live. This was so that he could avoid any future trouble. Adjusting his clothes, he turned around to face Seth. Let me make it clear, this is the last chance that I'll give to someone like Yo. The moment he turned around, however, the smile wiped off his face and his expression changed. Greeting him behind him wasn't anything scary. No monster or anything of the sort. However, by thump. Staring into those lifeless, hollow eyes, the CEO felt his heart begin to race. He couldn't explain why, but the longer he looked, the weaker he felt, his breathing turning shallow and uneven as a creeping dread took hold of him. SOI. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. All he could see were the pair of hollow eyes that were so focused on him. Something about them made his heart pound, and before he realized it, the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as he instinctively took a step back. But, thud, his own desk stopped him from moving further. Seth's gaze remained locked onto the CEO. From start to finish, he didn't say a single word, but it was that silence that made the CEO feel more and more uncomfortable. You heard me right, I will. Make sure that nothing will happen so, long as you hand the programs to me. I can have this written on paper, how about it? No response. The CEO started to sweat bullets. I can also promise you that I won't report you to the BUA. I'll promise you that. Do you need that written on paper? Yet again, no response. The CEO's back was now entirely drenched in sweat. Okay. He licked his lips, which had grown entirely dry. I'll forget about this entire accident and even stop Doc from blocking you. That should be good enough, right? Either way, it was never going to be permanent. I could have only blocked it for a week at most. Ha. By thump. The CEO retreated on his own terms each time he spoke. Although Seth didn't do anything at all and just stood in silence, something about his current presence brought chills to the CEO's body as he swallowed nervously and tried his best to make Seth happy. At this very moment, the CEO was keenly aware of one thing. If I don't please him, he'll kill me. He'll really kill me. Those lifeless and soulless eyes. Having dealt with horror games his entire life, the CEO was keenly aware of anomalies and what the guilds had to deal with. He had gone over multiple times in order to do research on the monsters, and, at this very moment, Seth was giving off the very same feeling. Standing before him wasn't a human, but an anomaly in itself. An extremely powerful and eerie one at that. The chills running down the CEO's body intensified, and just as his lips parted once more in an attempt to appease the man standing before him, Seth's lips finally parted open. I am not the one you should apologize to. His voice was even hoarser than before, grating even. The CEO felt the air get squeezed out of his lungs as he tried to make sense of the words. Not apologize to you. But then, who should he apologize to? Who did he offend besides Seth? Who did Something brushed against the CEO's face, making his entire body seize up. If the pressure in the room had felt suffocating before, it now turned icy, sinking into his skin. He couldn't move, every muscle locked in place, as a thin, cold hand settled on his shoulder. And then, flick, his computer suddenly turned on. Dudaya. A tune followed right after as a cold and grating voice followed, a head moving next to the CEO's shoulder. Me. Chapter 389, Launch 1. Click. A steady, monotone clicking echoed through the stillness of a dimly lit office. Behind the desk sat a lone figure, his eyes fixed on the glowing monitor before him. Click. His gaze stayed locked on the monitor, his movements mechanical and empty. It was as if he'd become a soulless machine. His empty eyes stared blankly at the screen. Are you sure you don't want me to eliminate him? I can do so if you command it. A certain voice whispered across the room. A tall and lanky figure appeared behind the man sitting by the desk, its hand pressed against its shoulder. Giving it a light squeeze, it turned to the man standing beside it. Just let me know and I'll... No. Seth's voice remained hoarse. He stared at the CEO and then the conductor. We've done enough. He didn't come here to kill. That would bring too much unnecessary attention to himself. If the BUA were to notice something abnormal, it wouldn't be too hard for them to link it to him or at least cause him trouble. Thankfully, Seth wasn't too worried about this. I'll let the guild master handle the trouble if it comes. He didn't reveal his secret to the guild master for no reason. He had to serve his uses after learning of such a secret. Seth knew his worth, and as such, he knew that if the BUA were to find faults with him, they'd take him away. This would negatively impact the guild and the guild master. Still, it never hurt to play things safely. To talk. A certain knocking sound came from the door. Seth's body turned black, vanishing into the ground while the conductor faded alongside him. A certain figure came in shortly after. CDO. It was Daniel, the CEO's assistant. Holding onto several papers, he walked in. I've done as requested. Is there anything else that you would like me to do? The CEO didn't react immediately. Instead, he kept his gaze fixed on the monitor in front of him. CDO. His actions brought confusion to the assistant's face, prompting him to raise his brow. And just as he began to suspect that something was wrong, the CEO turned his head. I've just gotten in contact with the station head from Doc. I've requested him to retract his actions. Huh? Daniel blinked his eyes, entirely confused by the situation. What do you mean by that? Weren't we supposed to stop him from posting? I've already sent the file over to the team. They're looking to see what they can learn from it, I'm sure. There's no need. What? Getting cut off again, Daniel was left confused. What was going on? Why was the CEO acting like this? Wasn't he extremely adamant on making sure that the game would never launch? What about the programs? A thought occurred to him. You've gained control over the programs. That's correct. The CEO replied after a brief pause, his face twitching for the briefest of moments. If one looked closely, they'd notice the subtle trembling of his eyes. You got it. A look of excitement crossed Daniel's face. Did he finally give in? There weren't many people who truly understood the effect of the programs that Seth used, but he was one of the few people who did. They were extremely revolutionary concepts, and they were also the key to helping them create their recent success after a series of flops. This is great. Daniel shouted with joy, unable to hide his joy. Ha-ha. He moved towards the CEO, laughing as he sat down on the seat opposite him. I guess you were right, he really was a pushover. He gloated over the situation, relaxing back. To be honest, I expected him to put up a little bit of a fight, but I guess this is good too. It makes things a lot easier for us. The newest patch of the game is getting released today. I'll notify them about the programs. Yes. The CEO nodded, pushing a certain USB stick forward. Here are the programs. Tell them to install them in the newest update. Got it. Standing up, Daniel reached for the USB stick. After which, he headed out of the room. But just as he was about to leave, he stopped, turning his attention towards the CEO. About Seth. He mused for a moment before lowering his voice. I would advise we get rid of him. Given what we've done to him, I'm sure he's holding on to a grudge. Let's make sure that he doesn't have any leeway to operate. I'm only advising this so that we can protect ourselves. I understand. The CEO replied, his tone the same as before. However, the trembling in his eyes only grew stronger. He looked to be desperately trying to say something, but it was unfortunate that Daniel didn't pick anything up, chuckling as he reached for the handle of the door. That's great, I'll get to work. Clank. The door closed right after, leaving the CEO sitting by himself. What followed was an unsettling silence, thick enough to make the air feel heavy. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, placing a hand on the CEO's shoulder as he leaned in close and began to whisper into his ear. Struggle as you might, the outcome will remain the same. From this point forward, you'll forget everything that has happened. You'll watch your newest update completely and utterly destroy the little reputation you've built. And... Seth paused, pulling his hand away. The CEO's eyes shook even more fiercely, his head straining as he tried to shake his head in despair. No, please. Such was what his eyes said. But you'll see the empire that you've created burn right before your eyes, and my game take everything that you've ever wished to happen to your games. I'm going to make sure that I'll take everything from you. Seth took a step back, his eyes indifferent to it all. Flick. The monitor of the CEO flickered, a certain clown appearing. A red ball faded from Seth's hands, a notification appearing in his vision shortly after. Although the hypnosis needed more time to take effect and more clothes in the current state of the CEO, this was enough. Da-da-da-da. A tune began to play in the air. Mr. Jingle says. As the tune began to play, Seth's entire body was surrounded in darkness as he began to disappear from the surroundings. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the room. This time, however, there was no one else present. It was just him and his anomalies. He looked around, scanning the place before moving towards the door. Let's go. In the other realm, no other human was present. He could move as he wished in such a realm. However, the sinister energy that lingered within this world was enough to make the hair on anyone's skin crawl. All besides the current Seth. At this very moment, he felt at peace in this world. It was almost as if he was one with the world. He carried on in the silence, slowly making his way out of the building and walking back towards the guild, where he appeared right near the entrance. Using Mr. Jingles to deactivate any operating camera, he canceled his node, appearing in the real world once more. As he did, his brows twitched. How uncomfortable. Chapter 390, Launch 2. Click, click. The steady clicking of the keyboard echoed through the room long after Seth had left. Sitting by the desk, the CEO's gaze remained hollow. It stayed that way for the next several dozen minutes before he finally exhaled and gave his head a small shake. Huh? He blinked a few times, his eyes slowly adjusting to the harsh glow of the monitor in front of him. What's going on? He reached to grab his head. His head throbbed as he tried to remember. The memories were muddled, slipping in and out of focus until a faint recollection surfaced. Right, we're about to release the new game. Seth handed over the programs, and out of the kindness of my heart, I told those from Doc to retreat. Yes, that's it. Snap. He snapped his fingers, finally recalling all of the key information. Yes, that's what it was. He chuckled. As expected, he was a pushover until the very end, gave in to my demands without much resistance. A faint smirk tugged at his lips as he leaned back against the seat. Now that I've secured the programs, it's only a matter of time before we climb into the global rankings. The moment a studio entered the global rankings, it marked its true ascent into prominence, recognized not just locally but across the entire world. It was the ultimate milestone, the dream every developer aspired to reach. And for Theodore, that dream was no different. Hers. Drumming his fingers over the table, he leaned further back in his chair. I can't wait to see the result of the upcoming update. I'm sure it's going to propel our game to the next level. Oh, right. Recalling something, the CEO laughed in amusement. Isn't his game coming out soon as well? Her. Although I did promise not to interfere any further, I won't be changing the release date of our update. I'm afraid that even after giving in, you'll still end up being buried. The CEO shook his head, clicking his tongue at the same time. Should have given in when we first asked. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done something like this. Space. Boss. You're back, boss. Where were you? I tried to reach you, but I couldn't get hold of you. The moment I returned to the studio, I was met with a wave of panic. The members rushed toward me, their faces pale and voices overlapping in confusion and worry. I lifted my hands slightly, motioning for them to calm down. Relax, nothing happened, I said, my tone steady as I glanced around at their anxious faces. I just stepped out to take a breather and deal with the situation. I've managed to strike a deal, so everything should be fine. A deal? What sort of deal? With who? Their confusion was understandable. None of them really knew the full extent of my issues with Nightmare Forge Studios. They had a rough idea, bits and pieces of what had happened, but they didn't understand just how deep it all went, or how they were the ones responsible for most of the trouble. It was also a little too troublesome for me to explain the situation to them. As such, I kept it relatively simple. Nightmare Forge Studios is my old company. I'm sure the three of you know. Let's just say that my relationship with the CEO isn't good. He tried to block the release of the game with his connections, but I managed to stop him. This was all I revealed to them. Even though all three looked to be eager to know more, I didn't elaborate further and just pointed at the laptops. Check if you can release the game now. It should be solved. All right. The three immediately snapped back to work, rushing towards the computers. Watching them dive into their work, I glanced around the room for a moment before finally making my way to my seat and sitting down. That's one problem down. Honestly, I felt tired. Rubbing my forehead, I took a slow breath, doing my best to hold myself together. The side effects of whatever had been happening to me moments prior were starting to calm down, and alongside it was a certain pain that I couldn't shake away. My head felt light, and an odd heaviness settled in my chest. Great, it also looks like I've oversued my node. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like there's any fractures. Going into the other realm put quite a bit of stress on my node. Thankfully, as a third order, this wasn't too bad for me. I could manage. I've also dealt with the CEO. There should also be no repercussions for my actions. The CEO probably didn't remember a single thing that had happened between the two of us. I had rewritten his memories in a way that made it seem like he had been the one to stop the dock block, and at the same time, made him think that I had also given in on his demands. I had done it this way so that he wouldn't suspect any foul play. Although I wasn't worried about the BUA, it would still save me a lot of trouble. Done. A voice shook me out of my thoughts. When I turned my head, I saw Noah staring at the monitor in front of him with a look of excitement. The game is out, it's official, I can see it on the page. Yes. Hey. Everyone celebrated, throwing their hands in the air. For a brief moment, I caught myself smiling at the sight, but only for a brief moment. I knew things were far from over. Pulling out my phone and opening the forums, the first thing that hit me was the sudden flood of messages filling the screen. He's finally released the game. At Samurai 71, he's finally released the game, you should start playing the game. Should I buy the game? I'm kind of feeling tempted. He's finally released his game, at Samurai 71. Show this guy his place, play the game, play the game. Play the game at Samurai 71. The first thing that caught my attention was all the that were directed towards one specific person. Staring at them, I frowned. Right, there's this guy as well. He's been pissing me off quite a lot lately. Taking a moment to open up his page, that was also the moment that he made an announcement. Samurai 71? Haha, looks like the game is finally out. I've been waiting for this moment for so long that I almost started to think it would never happen. Still, I'm glad to see it's here at last. In that case, just like I promised, I'll play it tonight. At Seth Thorne, you'd better think of switching careers. Huh? Seeing him directly at me, I was left shocked for a moment. I didn't think he'd actually fan the flames further. Not even a second later, my comments were flooded by his fans, each one hurling insults, telling me to quit and find a new career. The sheer number of them was overwhelming, leaving me momentarily at a loss for words. Eventually, I shook my head. As if I'm going to fall for such cheap provocation. I put my phone away, shaking my head at the same time. I'm not that easy. Seth Thorne, I'll do you one better. I'll retire completely if my game doesn't make you jump in fear. Chapter 391, Launch 3. Samurai 71, real name was Darwin Nomadal. Before becoming a streamer, he'd worked as a salesman. He was never particularly successful, and money had always been scarce, but from that job, he'd picked up a few valuable skills. The most important of them all was learning how to talk, how to sell an idea with nothing more than his voice. He was also able to learn another important ability. To grab an opportunity when it comes. Ding! A chime rang from his phone. You have been transferred 35,000. Heavy. A faint smirk tugged at his lips as he stared down at his phone, the glow of the screen reflecting faintly in his eyes. What an easy job this one is. His job was simple. Do whatever it took to bury a certain developer named Seth Thorne. The request had come straight from Nightmare Forge Studios, and in return, they'd promised him a generous sum of money. At first, he'd only planned to do it for the money, but after seeing the target's responses roll in, something shifted. He stopped treating it like just another job. He was actually quite annoyed. Heh, you'll quit, you say? Seeing his last statement online, Darwin almost had the urge to laugh. No, he did laugh. I guess I'll be taking a shitty developer from this industry. You can say that I'm cleaning shit up. Ding. Another notification rang. Just in time. He looked at the message. It was from Nightmare Forge Studios again. We're excited to announce that the update for our upcoming game will be released soon. As one of our valued partners, we'd like to invite you to begin streaming and showcasing the game to help generate awareness and engagement around the launch. It was just a formal letter inviting him to play the new update once it was released. Or at least, this was how it was on the outside. What they were really asking was, start streaming and make sure to provide us with enough traction to make the update a success. Being used to such an industry, Darwin could more or less tell the true intentions of the company he interacted with. Not that he cared, since he was going to benefit directly. I guess I should get started. His setup was nothing short of extravagant. He lived in a sleek penthouse perched atop a high-rise near Zone 1, its glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city below. By the windows sat a large desk, lined with multiple monitors and a powerful PC that hummed quietly amid the dim glow of LED lights. There was even a VR capsule not far from where he was. Let's see. Darwin looked around before picking up a small device from the side of the table. Botting the PC on, he messaged his mods and immediately started the streams. Hey. Black Circle Live. The number of viewers quickly started to skyrocket. A lot of people had been eagerly anticipating this stream, and with the feud he had with the unknown developer, he managed to amass quite an audience. It didn't take long for him to pull extremely high numbers. Black Circle Live. Viewers 74,203. Seeing the numbers for just the briefest of moments, Darwin was left without words. Holy shit. These numbers. They were unlike anything he'd ever seen before. His highest peak had once been around 30,000, but now the numbers on his screen far surpassed that, climbing higher and higher with every passing second. The chat was similarly exploding. Heh, who here waited the entire night to see this? I spent the entire night waiting for this moment. I've been edged for too long. Finally, I've been waiting for too long. Let's fucking go. Time to play that shitty game. Let's see how bad it is, Elmao. Seeing the numerous comments, Darwin had to try his best to hold his smile back. This was incredible. Who would have thought that such drama would cause this much of a stir? Darwin wasn't one to waste an opportunity. It looks like a lot of people have shown up to see me play the new game. Is that what it is? The chat exploded even more, and the gift notifications started to flood. Darwin could even see his follower count rising, and his heart shook. If that's the case, then let's not waste any time. Let me get the game loaded. Opening dock, Darwin immediately searched for the game. It didn't take long for him to spot it. He paused at the page, his expression turning strange. Nightmare Hotel? Really? They're not even putting in any effort at this point. Even the description of the game looks rather cheap. Oh, but wait. Spotting something, Darwin pointed at it. VR? His eyes widened for a moment. This game actually has VR. The chat paused alongside him. Then, do it. Play it. Play the game. It's even better now that it's VR. Darwin cracked a smile. This honestly grabbed me by surprise, but who am I to say anything? It looks like the little developer took our advice to heart. He's actually gone ahead and developed a VR game. I'm honestly surprised, but given the limited amount of time, I doubt it's going to be any good. Ish. Darwin shook his head. He should have stuck with PC games. Now it just looks like he wants to quit this business. Many laughed at his words, some even adding fuel to the fire. Darwin took in the sight without a smile, downloading the game before reaching for a strange device next to him. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these before, he said, holding up the device. They're the latest trending VR gear, lightweight, easy to use, and they let you enter the virtual world without needing a massive capsule or bulky helmet. Sure, the experience isn't as realistic as using a full capsule, but honestly, who cares? I doubt the game's even optimized for that kind of setup. Reaching for his PC, he connected it with his goggles and put them on his right ear. Booting them on, he proceeded to connect the stream with his vision. If any of you have any headsets or anything like that, you can connect them. You'll be able to feel everything that I feel. This feature was one of the main reasons the gear was so revolutionary. It allowed viewers of a VR streamer to experience everything more vividly, seeing, hearing, and even feeling fragments of what the streamer felt in the VR world. I'll give you all a moment to grab your stuff. I'll load the game in the meantime. The interface wasn't anything fancy. On the screen was a large building, its image framed by several icons shaped like keys along the side. The backdrop behind the building was pitch black, casting the whole scene in an eerie, almost foreboding atmosphere. Start game. Load. Settings. Quit. Darwin fixed his attention on the viewer count. Black Circle Live. Viewers 122, 104. He nearly had a heart attack when he saw the number present before him, but he quickly collected himself. Since it looks like everyone is here, let's start the game. He pressed start, and the world around him began to shift. The home screen dissolved into nothing, replaced by a sudden burst of light that flooded his vision. It was blinding, so much so that Darwin nearly flinched, a startled yelp catching in his throat. He barely managed to suppress the sound as a gentle lavender scent drifted through the air. It was soon joined by the faint melody of soft jazz and the low murmur of distant chatter. Darwin's eyes snapped open. The light receded, and a new scene emerged around him. A long counter stretched before him, placing him behind it like a clerk waiting for customers who had yet to arrive. The floor was made of yellowed marble that gleamed too perfectly under the soft lights above, each reflection shifting just a little too late, as though lagging behind his movements. A faded red carpet ran down the middle, its color dark enough to resemble something wetter than fabric. The place carried an antique charm, but something about it felt off, like a memory of a place rather than the place itself. Darwin's hand brushed the counter, and the marble felt unnaturally cold, pulsing faintly under his touch. It felt too real. How is this possible? Ding, ding. The sound sliced through the air. Darwin froze. Slowly, he lifted his head. Someone stood on the other side of the counter. Their figure was still, their features hard to make out beneath the warm light that seemed to bend around them. What little he could see of their face was weird. The smile stretched just a touch too wide, the eyes a little too still, their pupils reflecting him like glass. "Hello," the figure said. The voice was gentle, pleasant even, yet something in its tone made his stomach tighten. "I'd like to check in." "Bah thump." Darwin's heart started to race. Chapter 392, Viral Sensation 1. The soft tune of the jazz played in the air. A man stood before Darwin, his eyes locked onto him as he smiled. "I'd like to check in," he repeated, causing Darwin to flinch. He looked around. The touch, the smell, even the sights around him, all of it felt disturbingly real. So real, in fact, that it sent a chill crawling down his spine. The chat also felt the same way. "Holy crap, what are these graphics? The configurations are unreal. WTF, I can literally smell the lavender. Even the touch of the marble desk feels real. The hell?" Such reactions drew the attention of those who hadn't yet put on their headsets, curiosity pushing them to try it for themselves. Many had been skeptical at first, assuming the chat was exaggerating, but the moment they slipped the headset on and felt the world around them, they all swore in disbelief. "Holy fuck. This is actually insane. What the hell, this actually feels like a high-quality game." Black Circle Live. Viewers 137, 992. The viewers grew even further, but Darwin wasn't happy at all. "This isn't what I'm getting paid for. I can't let them think that this is actually good." He immediately started to criticize in areas where he could. "The general graphics of the game aren't so bad, I'd say. They are pretty good. I'm in fact impressed, but—" He raised his hand and looked at it, shaking his head in the process. "There's quite a bit of lag with the movements. This game has clearly not been optimized quite well. Oh well, I guess I can make do with this." He wasn't lying in this aspect. There was indeed a slight lag in the movements, subtle but noticeable. It was likely a result of the short development time and the small number of team members who had worked on the game. Just as Darwin was about to continue criticizing the game, something unexpected happened right before his eyes. The world froze and a panel appeared. "Game rules. You've just been hired as the night receptionist at a peculiar old hotel, where not every guest is what they seem. Your job is simple: observe, decide, and survive the night. Using the hotel's grainy security cameras, you'll monitor each guest who arrives. Some are harmless travelers, others not so much. It's up to you to accept or reject them based on what you see. But be careful, management doesn't tolerate mistakes. You can only reject 3 guests before you're the one getting kicked out. Keep your eyes open, trust your instincts. Not everyone checking in is still alive. P.S. Make sure you smile. Guests like it when you smile. Game rules." Staring at the game's description, Darwin's face changed subtly. He read each line to the viewer before eventually cracking a smile. "Is this it this simple?" He almost burst out laughing. A moment prior, he felt a little bit off due to the realism of the game, but looking at the description, he didn't think it would be anything scary at all. The comments also felt the same. "Isn't this game a little too simple? I mean, I'm sure it's obvious when you see one that is off." "I was just getting a little excited." "Yeah, but who knows? It might still be good." "I wonder about that." Darwin lowered the game description and turned his attention to the guest before him. With the panel out of the way, he could finally see the man clearly, his hair neatly parted to the side, his posture composed, and a crisp black tuxedo fitting him perfectly. At a glance, he looked perfectly normal. But when Darwin noticed the man's eyes, just a little too wide, and the faint, unnatural curve of his lips, a small smirk appeared on his own face. Make it any more obvious? He looked at the guest and shook his head. I apologize, sir, but we don't have any available rooms at the moment. If you could come back another time, I'd be more than happy to welcome you. The smile on the guest's face slowly started to recede. You don't have any more rooms. We don't. Darwin shook his head, feigning focus on the monitor in front of him. As his eyes drifted over the screen, he noticed something odd. 7 numbers lined up neatly across it, ranging from 1 to 7. Curious, he randomly clicked on 1. Flick. The monitor flickered and changed, revealing a long corridor. A soft carpet with faded floral patterns stretched across the floor, while beige walls lined with framed paintings framed the view. On each side of the hallway stood 6 doors, evenly spaced and perfectly still. The quality wasn't perfect, evident from the old vibe that the game was going for. Cameras. He clicked on the other buttons, displaying other corridors. Most likely, each number represented a different floor. Huh? Darwin laughed. Chat, doesn't this feel like a copy and paste of Nightmare Forge Studios' game? And here I thought he was going to be original for once. This game is a literal copy of what they created. What the hell? Of course, Darwin used this chance to criticize them. The chat also shared similar thoughts to his. The game mechanics look copied and pasted. There's really no originality anymore. But what can someone expect from a thief? They already stole the programs, so of course they're going to steal their game. There's literally no shame. It's quite frankly pathetic. I'm quite frankly disappointed. Darwin shook his head, lifting his head to look at the counter. Seeing that the man from before had left, he started talking with the chat. Not only does he steal programs from them, but now he's trying to plagiarize their game too. Isn't that a little too shameless? Other than the graphics, there's really nothing special about this. I'm already getting bored, to be honest. Scary? Yeah, I'm scared. Scared of how boring this game is. Lual. Hatio. Elmaya me too. This shit is straight up ass. The chat exploded with laughter, several gifts being donated at the same time. Seeing how lively the chat was, Darwin used this chance to promote Nightmare Forge's latest update. Let me tell you this, I've got exclusive access to Nightmare Forge's latest update. After I'm done with this crap, I'll play it. How about it? The chat moved fast following his words. Many were in favor of his suggestion, with some already getting bored with the current stream. Darwin was tempted to switch the game at this moment, afraid of losing the audience, but a bet was a bet. He needed to honor the bet. Let's carry on. I wonder when the next guest will appear. He didn't have to wait for long. A moment later, an elderly woman stepped inside, her clouded white eyes suggesting blindness. Tab, tab. The soft rhythm of her cane striking the floor filled the quiet space, each tap carrying a faint echo. When she finally stopped before the reception desk, her frail voice broke the silence. I'd like a reservation. Staring at her, Darwin paused. He then looked at the chat. What do we say? Should we accept her? A barrage of comments followed. In a way, this game wasn't too bad at helping him interact with his newfound audience as one guest after another went to the reception. Each time, he'd ask the chat whether to accept them or not. The cycle repeated for quite a while until... Reject, all right, let's reject this gzh. Beep. A loud beep suddenly echoed, causing Darwin's face to change. Looking at the monitor, he suddenly saw a large notification. Rejection quota reached. Wait, what? Turning his attention towards the guest and seeing them smile at him, Darwin's lips twitched as he looked at the chat and sighed. Welp, I guess we ran out of rejections. Looks like we have no choice but to accept him. He reached for a card and handed it over. Here you go, floor 5. Thank you. Staring at the guest's departing back, Darwin looked back at the reception hall, but as he did, he was surprised to see that there were no more guests coming. How come? He frowned, looking at his surroundings, and just as he was trying to figure out the situation, something strange occurred. Flick, flick. The lights above. They started to grow dimmer. A certain breeze brushed in at the same time. Wait, what? Flick. A change was beginning to take place. A change that made everyone watching pause. Chapter 393, Viral Sensation 2. Flick. As the lights in the reception dimmed, a strange stillness settled over the room. The air grew heavier, and an uneasy tension crept in, twisting the once familiar atmosphere into something quietly unsettling. "What's going on? What's happening?" Darwin stared at the surroundings in confusion. He raised his head to look at the lights. They had dimmed down somewhat. That wasn't all. The temperature of the room appeared to have lowered as well. Every little sensation felt vivid in his mind. "I see what's going on. This must be the game's way of trying to build a scary atmosphere. Since I've basically hit all my rejection quotas, it's triggering this scene. Honestly, it's a pretty cheap trick to create tension when you think about it." Darwin's tongue never stopped moving, criticizing the game as he pleased. "Let me guess. When I check the cameras, one of the guests I accepted will be standing there, right? They're probably smiling or acting creepily or some shit like that." Reaching for the monitor, he began to check the cameras. However, this is surprising. I don't see any people in the camera. Chat, what does this mean? Does this mean that we've chosen correctly? That's pretty easy. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. All of a sudden, a sharp ringing echoed through the reception, startling Darwin, and judging by the sudden flood of messages, the viewers as well. A brief silence followed as Darwin stared at the phone resting beside the monitor. It was an old, vintage model, the kind with a rotary dial and faded numbers etched around the circle. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra, tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. The ring reverberated throughout the place, drowning out the jazz music in the background. "Chat, should I pick this up?" Darwin smirked while staring at the phone. "You think it's going to be a guest? I'm thinking it's a guest." He reached for the phone a moment later, answering in a polite tone. "Hello, how may I help you?" Silence. The moment Darwin picked up the phone, he was met with silence. "Hello?" Darwin tried to speak again, but once again he received no response. "Is this a bug? Hello? Anybody there?" "Yeah, this is a bug, as expected." He rushed to release the game. "This thing doesn't even whoa." Darwin stopped, his words caught in his throat. A voice followed right after. "Room 307. Click. The line fell, leaving Darwin standing stupefied. What just happened?" He looked at the chat at a loss. "Room 307, you guys hear that?" The chat spammed like crazy. "I heard that. It said 307. That should be a floor on the third floor, right? Why don't you check it?" "Third floor? Check the camera for the third floor." Quick. All right." Listening to the advice of the listeners, Darwin pressed onto the 3 on the monitor, and the screen flickered to the same empty corridor as before. The corridor light was rather dim, with labels on each door indicating the room number. "There's nothing." Darwin frowned, staring at the corridor in search of anything. He even tried to click on the room, but nothing happened. The camera quality was also poor, and the screen flickered at times. Eventually, after trying for a couple more seconds, he shook his head. "It looks like nothing is happening, chat. I guess this is another way to add cheap tension to this crappy game. Honestly, the amount of cliches that this game uses is a little bit too much. I've already wasted a lot of time getting the guests in. This feels more like a receptionist sim than a proper game." "You're right, this game is pretty shit so far. How about you switch? Play the Nightmare Forge update." "Switch game. This is boring, switch." Darwin wasn't the only one fed up with the game. The comments were similarly fed up, and the previously rising viewers started to drop, going from the peak of 152,302 to 149,083. While the drop wasn't sharp, it was still evident, and the trend was downward. Seeing the downward trend, Darwin smiled. "All right, it looks like everyone is fed up. I'm also fed up. I officially declare this game to be tra." Creak. A sudden creaking sound cut Darwin off, giving a certain chill as his head slowly turned towards the monitor. It was there that he caught sight of a middle-aged man walking out of room 307, his gaze and eyes empty. "Oh, it looks like something is finally happening. Still, I think it's a little too late. I think I'm going to quit the game." Right as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man stopped, his gaze rising towards the lamp at the top. Taking out a rope from his pocket, he tossed it on top. What? What is he doing? Is he trying to destroy the lamp? What's this? The camera quality wasn't very good, so it wasn't very clear. Darwin and some viewers squinted their eyes to get a better look at the situation, and as they did, the camera started to lag. The middle-aged man's movement slowed, and just as the chat was starting to grow frustrated, the view returned. The moment it did, Everyone was greeted by the sight of the middle-aged man dangling from the lamp above, his neck hanging over the rope. Holy shit. What the fuck? What the hell is this? Don't worry, everyone. Calm down. There's nothing really scary about this. It's just a man who has hung himself. Although it looks a little realistic, it's nothing crazy. Although he said this, Darwin felt a sudden chill while staring at the scene. He couldn't explain what it was, but staring at the dangling man in front of him, he felt a subtle tremor coming from his hand. He pinched the fear away. It's just a game. This isn't a real person. There's no need to panic, ha. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra, tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. A certain ring echoed across the surroundings once more, prompting the smile that had appeared on Darwin's face to fade rather quickly. Turning his attention towards the phone once more, Darwin swallowed for a moment before reaching for it. His mouth didn't stop. Is it the same guy from before? Is he going to stay silent like last time before saying a room number? Haha. I don't know if I want to wait for so long, I think. Room 502. Click. The phone hung up shortly after, leaving Darwin at a complete loss. One glance at the chat was all it took for Darwin to know what they expected. He reached for the monitor and switched the feed to the 5th floor. The same empty corridor flickered onto the screen a moment later, and his eyes instinctively locked onto room 502. The surroundings turned silent. For a moment, even the chat started to slow down, as all attention appeared to be focused on the room door. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. 40 seconds. 50 seconds. Time ticked, and right as 1 minute passed, a creaking sound echoed. Creak. It was just like before. The door opened, and a guest came out. It's that guy. Darwin recognized the man who walked out immediately. In fact, he had also recognized the middle-aged man from before. Both of these guests were guests whom he had allowed to enter the hotel. Is he going to hang himself again? Darwin pursed his lips before finally collecting himself again and gathering some momentum. How much do you all bet he's going to kill himself like the other guy? He might not hang himself, but he'll do it in some different way. I'm almost certain that this is how it'll play out. Smirking to himself, Darwin watched as the cameras started to lag again. See, the situation is repeating itself. Watch now. Once the cameras stop lagging, the guy will have. Darwin's words caught in his throat as the cameras flickered back to life. The scene that appeared wasn't what he expected. H.ha. Standing in the middle of the corridor, facing the camera, was the same middle-aged man. His grin was stretched unnaturally wide, and his eyes were open far too wide, unblinking as they locked onto the lens. No, straight at Darwin as he felt cold chills running down his body. Before he knew it, his breathing had grown a little heavier as he turned his attention towards the chat. It was quiet over there. The number of new comments wasn't many. There were still some making fun of the situation, but many were quiet. And soon the camera flickered. The man disappeared from the corridor. He's gone. Where is he? Darwin immediately used the cameras to search the lower floors in search for the man, but as he did, he couldn't find anything at all. Each hall was empty. By thump. For some reason, his heart started to beat rapidly, and as he frantically searched the cameras for the man, the phone rang again. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra, tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. Darwin held his breath, feeling the situation starting to spiral out of control. However, he still reached for the phone. He had a feeling that he had to. And soon, the voice echoed again. Its next words, however, made Darwin's entire body shudder. Reception. Click. Chapter 394. The game that makes you kill yourself 1. The silence that followed the call felt agonizing. Reception, did it say reception? It said reception. Darwin's breathing subconsciously grew heavier. He tried his best not to show it once he noticed, but this wasn't something that he could control. What is wrong with me? Why am I acting like this? Ha. He laughed it off. I guess it looks like I'm the next target. His back shuddered. So from what we've observed, it takes about several seconds to a minute before the victim dies. Well, at least for something to happen. We don't actually know what happens. In the first one, the person hung himself, but do you all think I'm going to do the same? Ha. Darwin laughed again, finding the thought to be ridiculous. He sat back down and checked his watch. Tick. For some reason, the ticking of the clock felt louder than ever. To hide his nervousness, Darwin continued to check the cameras. There's nothing here, nothing else here. Do you guys think the smiling man from before will come to me? Honestly, this is pretty terribly designed. Darwin continued to point out the flaws of the game. The tension would have been a lot higher if the smiling man had appeared on the fourth floor. It would have shown some progression. Honestly, I might have even felt a bit of panic if that happened. But as you can see, the programmer skipped over something that basic. This is Game Design 101. Darwin wasn't a game designer, but he didn't need to be to know stuff like this. The chat also thought similarly. Yeah, honestly, what is this guy thinking? I'm honestly not feeling that tense. Wasted potential. Honestly, for a moment, I thought it was starting to get good. What wasted potential? Has anything happened yet? Tick, tick. The clock continued to tick. Pulling his gaze away from the timer, he looked towards the surroundings. At first glance, the reception seemed unchanged, but the dim lights appeared to breathe, pulsing faintly as they fed and withdrew from the shadows. The air grew thick, pressing in on him, as if something beyond the scope of the reception had stirred awake and was now watching, waiting just beyond the edge of sight for the next second to slip by. Darwin's lips parted slightly, his mouth dry as if the air itself had drained all the moisture from him. The gentle tune continued to play in the background, and as he focused his attention on his surroundings, he suddenly felt a change. Crrr. Darwin's attention snapped toward the speakers as a faint crackling sound bled through them. His body tensed instantly, every nerve on edge, waiting for whatever was about to follow. Is something finally happening? I've been waiting for quite some time, was wondering if it was coming or not. He still maintained an outward calm. He couldn't let the viewers think that he was actually nervous. He waited in silence, his eyes fixed nervously on the speakers. The static continued to bleed through, growing louder, swallowing every other sound in the room. It started to grow unbearable, and Darwin's face started to wince. The viewers also started to find it uncomfortable, and just as the noise started to reach a point where the viewers were about to shut the stream off, it stopped. Silence. The dim reception turned completely silent. But it was that silence that heightened the tension. Bah thump. Darwin's heart pounded, each beat drumming steadily in his ears until it drowned out everything else. He tried to push the sound away, to focus on anything but that relentless rhythm, but it stayed, echoing inside his skull, refusing to fade. His eyes scanned the surroundings cautiously, ready to react at any given moment. Everything felt off to him. The shadows seemed to shift and breathe, stretching along the walls in unnatural patterns. The mirrors and paintings around him felt alive, their still surfaces staring at him in the silence. Everything felt alive, and chills started to spread across his back. He opened his mouth, trying to say a word, but nothing came out. His throat was completely dry. And just as the tension reached the limit, da-dang! The speakers fared back to life, causing Darwin's heart to pound. Huh? He turned his gaze back to the speakers. They were playing again, the same soft jazz tune as before. The stretched shadows slowly receded to their places, and the invisible eyes that had lingered in the dark seemed to vanish, leaving the room as it was. What is that all? Darwin looked around, trying to see if there was anyone around him. However, the entire place was deserted. It was just him. What's this? Is this really it? He looked rather disappointed. I guess this was the cheap jump scare tactic. Is it trying to build up tension? I don't know, but it certainly wasn't much at all. Hi. And here I was getting excited. Shaking his head, he sat back down on the chair, wiping some of the cold sweat from his forehead. That was incredibly disappointing. To be honest, I expected more. All of this for? It's a waste of time. Change the game. Isn't the music different? Picking up a certain comment, Darwin frowned. He tried to listen to the music better, and as he did, his brow rose. It really was different. There seems to be a soft hum in the music, like that of a little girl. It's faint, but it's there. He hadn't noticed it before, but now that he did, he also noticed something else. The tempo of the music. It was a little bit faster than before. He wasn't the only one. The viewers started to notice the abnormalities with the music, too. And just as Darwin was about to speak, the phone rang again. For a moment, Darwin was startled. He nearly jumped up at the sound of the phone, but quickly collecting himself, he reached for the phone and responded. Room 409. Click. The same voice and the same quick call. Staring at the phone in silence, Darwin forced a laugh while checking the cameras on the 4th floor. He waited exactly 1 minute, hoping to see something, but nothing. Nothing happened. Another bug. This game seems to be full of bugs. Darwin frowned, no longer paying attention to the music. He fiddled with the cameras for a couple of more seconds until Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. The phone call came again. This time, Darwin was less hesitant as he picked it up. Room 703. Click. What in the world? Darwin checked the cameras for the 7th floor, but still nothing. Another bug. He frowned, waiting for a minute. But nothing happened yet again. This is the 2nd time nothing has happened. This game is really shit. Even the viewers were growing frustrated. Seeing how the situation was turning out, Darwin was just about to change the camera angle when something happened. Kriak. The door on the 7th floor opened, and an elderly figure walked out. Oh, something is finally happening. Darwin narrowed his eyes, staring at the old lady through the poor-quality camera, and just as she walked out of the room, something occurred. She reached for her pocket and retrieved a certain rope. A familiar scene was starting to play out. The camera started to lag, and a moment later, her lifeless corpse started to dangle on the rope. Darwin felt the air leave his lungs at the sight, an audible gulp escaping him as he hurriedly switched the camera feed. He flipped back to the 4th floor, and the moment the image came into view, his entire body went still. A woman knelt on the floor, her hands clasped together in desperate pleading. Standing before her was the same man from the 5th floor, his eyes stretched wide, his mouth hanging open in a grotesque imitation of a smile. Bah thump, bah thump. Darwin's heart drummed loudly. The chat stopped moving, and the surroundings turned silent, all besides that soft music that played in the background. As every eye remained fixed on the woman kneeling before the man, the camera feed began to stutter and glitch. The image warped and froze for a moment, then abruptly shifted, revealing the next scene to everyone watching. The woman. She stood before the camera, staring at it. Her face was deathly pale, her smile stretched too wide, and her tangled black hair hung in disarray. She wore a simple white dress, tilting her head slightly as she stared into the camera. Catching sight of such a figure, Darwin's legs trembled, the surrounding light turning even dimmer as his heart thumped even louder. But he cared nothing for that as something else pressed his mind. Where is it? Without thinking, he glanced around, his trembling hand reaching for the drawer beside him. The moment he pulled it open, his breath paused, then turned ragged. Because inside, lying coiled and waiting, was a rope. A rope he recognized instantly. Who? His mind spun out of control, a suffocating dread creeping into every corner of his body as his hands shook beyond his control. He wasn't stupid. He understood what the videos meant, the calls, every single thing that had happened. The man was coming. Floor by floor, he was getting closer. 3 options, that was all Darwin had left. Hope the man didn't reach him by morning. Wait for him to arrive. Or hang himself. Darwin's impenetrable face finally started showing signs of cracks. Fear had finally started to consume him. Chapter 395, the game that makes you kill yourself too. Haha, this is ridiculous. Darwin forced a laugh, staring at the rope in the drawer and taking it out. He got a good feel of it as he promptly shook his head. Is the game expecting me to kill myself or something? How ridiculous. He put up a tough front, but inside he was shaking. Unconsciously, he started to bite his nails as he sat down on the seat, staring at the cameras. In order to distract himself, he stared at the chat. So there are 3 options. Wait until the shift is over, wait for the monster to come, or kill yourself. Wow. That's pretty fucking crazy. The developer was sick in the head when creating this. Nah, I mean this is actually kind of stupid, as if someone would actually kill themselves. Now that I think about it, are we sure there's only one monster? The chat suddenly slowed down. Darwin's heart trembled upon seeing the last message. That's right, who said there's only one monster? Didn't I allow a bunch of guests in? Suddenly, even more cracks began to show in Darwin's face, his body shaking nervously. Flashback of the scene with the lady on the fourth floor replayed. No, 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 no. His chest heaved up and down quickly. The changes didn't go unnoticed, and some people in the chat started pointing them out. Lol, look at Samurai, he's fucking trembling. El Mao, don't tell me you're scared. He's fucking scared. El Mayaro. I bet that if we look at his seat, it's full of piss. Ha. Scared. Darwin quickly sobered up upon seeing the comments. He frowned before smirking. I'm anything but scared. If any of you noticed me trembling, then you've clearly never tried this VR setup yourself. This place, it's fucking cold. He wasn't lying in this regard. The surroundings, they were turning colder with each passing second. Turning his attention towards the clock, 4 a.m., he knew that he only needed to wait 2 hours until his shift was over. 2 hours? In the game, that was about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was all he needed in order to survive. Samurai isn't lying. It's actually pretty darn cold. How about you try it yourself before talking shit? Fucking trolls, just give it a try. Lol, here come the meat riders. Meat riders, my ass, just fucking try it, you idiot. Many die-hard fans started defending Samurai's trembling. There were some trolls that tried to fan the flames, but they were quickly shut down by them as the place was indeed cold. It looks like the situation is getting quite messy. I need to do something. He could see that several were starting to doubt him. Putting on a smirk, he looked at the chat. Like I said before, it's cold. That's why I'm trembling. If you don't believe it, you can try it. Stop chatting shit. He then looked at the rope next to him. Grabbing it, he showed it to the chat. If any of you believe that I'd actually be dumb enough to kill myself, all of you are fucking naive. Why in the world would I do something like this? This entire game mechanic is just to add fear. Worst comes, I'll just die from the monster. Darwin shook his head, baffled by some of the comments he was seeing. Did people seriously think he was actually going to kill himself? As if. He wasn't that crazy. This was obviously inserted to add tension, and to some extent it helped, but it was merely decoration. Some of the more cool-headed people in the chat also agreed with his analysis. I thought it was obvious, lol. It's fucking common sense. Why would you kill yourself, lol? I can also just quit the game. Darwin shook his head again, setting the rope to the side. Sometimes he questioned the general intelligence of the people in his chat. As I was saying, Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. The phone rang again, making Darwin's heart jolt as his mouth snapped shut. He didn't answer right away. The shrill ringing echoed through the reception, each note scraping against his nerves as his pulse quickened. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. Glancing at the cameras and finding nothing out of place, he bit down on his lip, then slowly reached for the phone. It was silent. All Darwin could hear was the frantic sound of breathing. It was fast, almost frantic, and before he realized it, his own breathing had fallen into rhythm with it, matching each ragged inhale and exhale on the other end of the line. And soon, room 605. Click. The call ended right after. By now, the chat and Darwin were both aware of what was about to happen, as Darwin turned the camera feeds to the 6th floor. But the moment he did, his expression changed. Appearing before the camera was an elderly man, his lips curled into a thin, unnatural smile. His eyes were wide, just like the girl S and the man S from before, staring straight into the lens with an unsettling silence. B.A. thump, B.A. thump. Darwin's face could no longer remain calm. His face paled and his feet started to tremble. Biting his nails, he switched the cameras. 5th floor. 4th floor. 3rd. Bang. Darwin shot up from his seat, his eyes fixed on the monitor showing the 3rd floor. There, the white-haired girl in the dress stood motionless, staring straight into the camera, her smile even wider than before. She. There was no question about it. The girl had moved down a floor. Darwin had completely forgotten about the chat at the moment. His eyes shook as she stared at the woman, and the more he looked at her, the more unsettled his heart became. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. The ringing came again, but Darwin didn't answer it this time. He was afraid of what was about to come next. Tia-ra-ra-ra-ra. 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 The shrill ring of the phone echoed through the room, its piercing tone swallowing every other sound. With each repetition, the noise seemed to dig deeper under his skin, and Darwin began to tremble, unable to steady himself. Stop, make it stop. He began mumbling to himself, his eyes still locked fiercely with the phone. And just as he thought the sound would carry on forever, T-R-R-R. The ringing stopped. Even the music in the background stopped, everything turning silent. Not a single sound was heard. Not a single sound besides the beat of his own heart and his own heavy breathing. The already dim lights began to fade even more, plunging the room into near-total darkness. Darwin stood frozen in place, the faint glow of the monitor casting long shadows across his face. Slowly, he lowered his gaze and checked the time. 5:10 a.m. 50 minutes left. There were 50 minutes. Clank, 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 clank. UK. Darwin suddenly jumped up, his face paling as he looked around. Who goes there? He squinted, trying to see through the darkness, but it was useless. The air grew colder with every passing second, thick and heavy, until it felt like the very room was closing in around him. Who? In his panic, he didn't notice the frantic typing in the chat. Above, the sound is from above. Check the cameras, the sound is from above. Hurry, hurry. Fucking shit. Huh. Darwin looked around, his face full of panic. Eventually, he managed to reach the cameras, his fingers trembling as he switched the feed. The moment the images flickered to life, his face drained of color, his expression twisting as a cold shiver ran down his spine. Is a hug. Faces stood before each camera, staring at him with the same creepy smile. The moment he locked eyes with them, they started moving. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. By now, fear had completely overtaken his mind. Rational thought slipped away, leaving only panic. In his desperation, he tried to vault over the counter, but the moment he moved, an invisible wall stopped him cold. Eck! Darwin screamed, the panic growing even worse. Run, they're coming. Run. Fug, fug, fug. The chat was fully invested now. Not one person could take their eyes off their feed. All eyes locked onto the panicked Darwin as he frantically looked around, but... I can't run, it won't let me run. He checked the time. 5:20 a.m. Still 40 minutes. No. He bit his nails, feeling the situation turn dire. To make matters even worse. Step. He soon heard the sound of steps, multiple, all rushing his way. Oh no. Darwin glanced around frantically, feeling the cold sweat soaking through his back as the strength drained from his body. His vision blurred. It was getting harder to think, harder to breathe. And as the slow, deliberate footsteps drew closer, one dreadful thought crept into his mind. That's right. His gaze fell on the rope beside his desk. A crazed look marred his features. Yes, there's that way. All traces of reason had vanished. In its place was raw, frenzied desperation. Darwin snatched the rope with shaking hands and climbed onto the chair, his movements clumsy and unsteady. Step. The steps grew even more rushed. They were about to arrive. There. Connecting the rope with the lamp on top, Darwin didn't hesitate. He placed it around his neck and stared crazily in the direction of the steps. Stop me now, Herahoya, stop me now. And then, crack, the world turned black. A large game over appeared shortly after. Everything turned silent right after that. Nobody made a sound. The chat was completely quiet. That was until... Seth Thorne, pussy. A certain comment showed up. That was also the moment the stream hit its peak. Black Circle Live. Viewers 202-1. Chapter 396. The Game That Makes You Kill Yourself 3. Seth's comment was all it took to bring the chat back to life. Holy shit. What the fuck just happened? It's the developer, fucking bastard. Everyone immediately started to curse him, but he was long gone by the time they started to curse him. Still, that was all that was needed to wake everyone up out of their stupor. Did anyone get a clip of the last moment? I did, do you think? I don't know, but for a moment, I nearly forgot it was a game. It was incredibly realistic. Nah, Samurai is just a pussy. That shit doesn't look scary at all. Why don't you try it then? That's what I'm doing. I've already bought the game and plan to try it out. The same goes for me. I don't believe I'll actually kill myself like that idiot. Same, I think it might have been a skit. There's just no way. Everyone was talking about the game. No one could stop talking about it as clips surfaced online, showcasing the highlights of the streams. The videos started to garner a lot of views, and the general thoughts were, is the game really that scary? I don't believe it. Let me try it. Immediately, the doc page started flooding. People started to purchase the game one after another. It didn't take long for the game to reach the trending page, and with each passing moment, it only grew more and more. In a certain room, a man stood in silence, blankly staring at the empty ceiling of his room. Every so often, his hand drifted to his neck, fingers brushing lightly against the skin. The touch was slow, almost absent-minded, as his thoughts slipped back to the moment just before. The sensation was still vivid in his mind, and despite the stream still being on, Darwin's mind continued to linger over the game. His thoughts were empty, and whenever a stray thought managed to surface, it only dragged him back to those final moments, making his whole body tremble with the memory. He remained like that for an unknown period of time. Until... Tia-ra-ra-ra, tia-ra-ra-ra. You-ha-ha. A scream ripped out of his throat, his chair wobbling as he nearly fell back. And no, make it stop. His face was pale with fear, his hand reaching for his pocket and taking out the phone. The moment he saw that someone was calling, his memories drifted back, and he instantly hung up the call. No. He gripped both hands with his head, his lips tremoring. Please stop. But would it really stop? As if the person on the other side of the phone was playing a sick joke on him, the phone rang again. Tia-ra-ra-ra, tia-ra-ra-ra. Darwin's face trembled again, his heart racing out of his chest. The dimness of the room deepened, shadows stretching and warping along the walls. As Darwin's eyes darted around, the unease crawling through him turned into a full-bodied tremble. No, enough. He was even too scared to pick up the phone. Thankfully, the ringing stopped a few moments later, bringing quietness to the room. That was until... Ding! A chime rang and a message appeared. Since the phone was lying face up, Darwin could see the message clearly. The instant his eyes caught the words on the screen, his trembling stopped altogether. Nightmare Forge Studios rep, call me back immediately, answer now. Seeing that it was the rep from Nightmare Forge Studios, Darwin calmed down for a second, but he still hesitated to reach for the phone. Eventually, he decided to use his voice assistant. Call back Nightmare Forge. Calling back Nightmare Forge Studios rep. The phone rang a couple of times, but it soon connected. What happened? A very unsatisfied voice echoed from the phone's speakers. Before he even gave Darwin a chance to speak, he started berating him. We had an agreement. You were supposed to make sure that the game flopped. You were supposed to criticize it and make those gullible people watching you believe you, but look at what you've done. The game is trending. Daniel's voice was loud on the other end of the speaker. He was incredibly pissed. Darwin could sense it, and he tried to apologize, but Daniel was having none of it. Due to your actions, we are now forced to cancel our plans. The disruption you've caused is unacceptable. I request an immediate refund of the payment we issued. If this matter is not resolved promptly, I will pursue legal action for breach of contract, and we assure you the consequences will be significant. Yes. Knowing that he was in the wrong, Darwin immediately nodded. Even though he didn't like being spoken to like this, he also knew that they were right to be angry. He had indeed messed things up. He also didn't want to burn bridges with such a large company. Good. Thankfully, his subservient attitude helped ease a bit of Daniel's anger. As long as you comply, there shouldn't be any problems. I still want you to do a stream right now. Do your best to repair the damage that you've caused. I heard that you were pulling great numbers. In fact, let me see how many you have right now. A muffled clicking sound echoed from the speakers. Presumably, it was Daniel opening up his stream to check his situation. Very good. You've got more than 200,000 people. This is excellent. Start streaming our game in. Daniel suddenly stopped. The line fell silent. Hello, is something happening? Confused, Darwin tried to speak a couple of times, but he received no response each time. And soon, click, the line fell. What? Having calmed down quite a bit, Darwin was no longer as scared as before as he managed to reach for his phone. He planned to message the representative from Nightmare Forge Studio, hoping to figure out what was happening. But the moment his fingers brushed the screen, he froze. His lips trembled, and as he slowly lifted his head, his gaze fell on the red dot right next to the camera. He then looked at himself on the monitor. His heart sank. Oh shit. Space. Do you think they'll buy the game? I think our game is pretty good. I've shot myself a couple of times while playing it. Me too. I wonder how the boss does it. Even though I've worked on the game with you all, it still feels unreal that the game can provide such an effect. The graphics too, right? Noah, Ryan, and Joseph all stood by the monitors, checking the game for any bugs. Because there was no internet inside the studio, none of them could properly check the situation outside. They didn't know how the game was faring, but thinking about all the backlash that Seth was facing, they weren't very optimistic. I'll be fine as long as we break even. How many sales should that be? I'd say around 40,000 sales. I think we can reach that. Ryan replied, though his voice didn't sound very confident. Noah also didn't sound too confident as he said, 40,000 might be a little too much, but I at least hope we can cross the 10,000 mark by tomorrow morning. I won't check my phone until then. I don't want to jinx it. I'll do the same. Me too. As the three were discussing the sales amongst themselves, the door to the studio opened. A figure walked in shortly after. Boss! 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 They all shouted in unison, prompting Seth to lift his head. Noah stepped forward. How is the situation outside? What do you think? Is the game doing well? Is it a flop? Please don't tell me it's a flop. I refuse to believe it's a flop. Everyone looked at Seth, who stopped dead in his tracks. Taking in the looks around him, he smirked, putting his phone away. Don't worry about it. We'll see the results tomorrow. Chapter 397, Global Ranking 1. The next day came quickly. After going to the gym and washing up, I headed to the studio. I had yet to check the game's statistics. In fact, I hadn't even gone online. I didn't know how the situation was going over there. Arriving at the guild, I took the familiar path through the corridors and made my way toward my office. The building was unusually quiet, the silence broken only by the faint creak of the floorboards beneath my steps. It was a little early, and a certain emptiness hung in the air, but I paid it little mind and continued toward my office. Boss. You're here, boss. I was dying to wait for you. Three voices soon broke the silence as I turned my head to see Noah, Joseph, and Ryan heading towards me. Seeing them, I paused. The three of them. How could I even begin to describe the state they were in? They still wore the same clothes as yesterday, their hair disheveled, and dark circles ringed their tired eyes, giving them a hollow, sleepless look. I grew speechless. You didn't sleep last night, did you? In fact, I could even smell some alcohol. These guys. We were a little too nervous for the results. We all wanted to check, but we just stopped ourselves. Yeah, we promised to check in the morning. I'm dying to know, can we check? Not yet. I stopped them before they could do anything else. Looking around, I pointed at my office. Let's do it inside, not here. I didn't want them to cause a mess over here. The three also appeared to have understood as they hurriedly lowered their voices and moved into the office. Clank. The office fell silent almost instantly, not a single sound breaking the air as every pair of eyes turned toward me. I could feel their anticipation, the weight of their stares pressing in, but I didn't rush. Instead, I calmly set my things down, pulled out my chair, and took a seat. Was I nervous? I was. In fact, I was also dying to know. However, I was confident in my game. There was no need for me to worry. I knew it was going to be a success. This was how much confidence I had in the game. Nevertheless, there were no guarantees, and that little seed of doubt only grew with each passing second as I eventually turned my attention to Noah. Trying to keep myself grounded, I smiled. All right. The three immediately jumped up, Noah whipping out his phone and hurriedly logging on to Doc. Ryan and Joseph both stared at Noah's phone in anticipation, but stopped a moment later, pulling away while closing their eyes. Actually, I want to hear it. Same. Both of them shut up. The room turned deathly quiet. I sat in silence, trying my best to remain collected. However, my fists were clenched beneath the desk. 50,000 sales, that's all I need for success. Let it be 50,000. The sales would increase after that. An opening day of 50,000 would suggest a good opening. Given how the game was priced at $10, that would also mean that I'd make nearly $500,000, excluding doc fees. That was all I needed. The silence dragged on, Noah's eyes reflecting the glow of his phone's screen. I waited in the heavy silence, each passing second stretching longer, pressing tighter against my chest. Just as the tension began to feel unbearable, Noah finally lowered his phone. He looked around, not making a single sound. And then, oh, what? His lips quivered. 110,000. The words left Noah's mouth slowly, almost disbelieving, yet heavy enough to fill the entire room. For a moment, I didn't know how to react. The same was true for the others, as they stared at Noah dumbly. But then, holy shit. What did you just say? Did you just say 110,000 sales? What the fuck? This can't be real. Are you sure it's real? Ryan and Joseph both shouted at the top of their lungs, their eyes wide and faces full of disbelief. I was just like them, but the words refused to come out as I struggled to process the information. 110,000 sales. That's more than double what I wanted. In fact, this was far more than any other game I had ever made before. These numbers, they almost felt unreal. Check again, this has to be a dream. It has to be a dream. These are unreal numbers for such a small game. At Ryan's insistence, Noah searched again, but the result was the same. The doc page didn't lie. The first day's sale value was indeed like this. Holy shit. Ryan screamed again, jumping up while staring at me. Boss, this is insane, boss. I know, calm down. I smiled at the three of them, pretending to be calm. This is just the first day. This might all be due to the momentum that we've gathered following the stream. There were indeed a lot of people watching. Let's wait to see how things will progress in the future. Although I said all of this, I was inwardly doing all sorts of acrobatics in my mind. Backflip, front flip, middle fingers, all of that nonsense. Yes. Wow, I can't believe you're so calm, boss. I guess you really believed in the game a lot. You're right, let's be calm like the boss. There's no need to be excited just yet. There's still a lot of work that we need to do. My fake calmness seemed to rub off on them, and they quickly calmed down. They all turned into work mode shortly after. There are several bug and glitch reports. Let's handle those first. Noah was quick to take charge. Ryan, you're better than I am at this stuff. I'll download the report and send it to you. Make sure you tackle that. I want them to be fixed as soon as possible so that we can improve the user experience. Got it. Ryan hurriedly took out his phone and received the report. He didn't waste a second after that and rushed away into the studio. Joseph, you work with me. Given how many people are playing the game, we need to expand the server size for when the multiplayer feature rolls in. Understood. There were plans to add a multiplayer feature. However, given the time constraints and the challenges of adding multiplayer, we chose to delay it. We also wanted to see the total number of players who would be playing the game. Now that we knew, Noah and Joseph got to work. They were so focused on their job that they didn't even look at me, rushing towards the studio to work on the changes. Staring at the two, I smiled. I didn't make a mistake hiring them. I could tell that they truly cared for the games, and not only that, but they were also extremely capable. Where would I find more people like this? This was just the start. I wanted more. I wanted my games to reach the entire globe, and to do that, I needed an even bigger team. But still, this was enough for now. There's no need to rush. Taking out my phone, I started to look at the comments. Seeing them, I smiled. There were quite a lot of positive ones. However, a certain comment made me pause. Do you all think that this game might reach the global rankings? Global rankings. I paused. I think it's possible. Chapter 398, Global Ranking 2. Global Ranking. The comment made me pause. It wasn't like I didn't know what global rankings were. They existed back in my world too, but things were quite a bit different in this world. Perhaps because this world appeared to have more emphasis on games due to the existence of VR or because of the system's workings, but the global rankings were a lot more prestigious than the ones in my old world. They ranked the top 200 games in the world based on several criteria, and the competition over there was ruthless. It didn't just consider sales value, it also accounted for entertainment value, core mechanics, ratings, and so on. It was a carefully crafted list by several experts at the top. They also appeared to use AI to ensure the score is as accurate as possible. Last I'm aware, it had been quite a long time since a gaming company from Malavia Island has made it into the global rankings. Nightmare Forge Studios claimed to be close to reaching the global rankings, but honestly, I didn't think they were close at all. Their game was great, with unique mechanics and all, but it still lacked the X factor that would put it in the rankings. Not only that, but its horror nature also put it at a disadvantage. Horror games didn't perform as well as other big company games. It'd be nice if it touches the global rankings. Still, I didn't have too much hope. In order for a game to reach the global rankings, it needs to have a reach outside of just the island it came from. In that regard, I needed to attract audiences who weren't just from Malavia, but also from the central island. That's a bit difficult. The culture over there was different, and so was their tolerance for horror. All in all, it wasn't going to be easy. Well, let's see in the next few days. I'd get a better idea if it was possible or not. I didn't hold much hope. Shoving those thoughts away, I continued to look at the comments. But, global rankings, nah, that's not possible. I really doubt he can do it. Why do you say so? The game just isn't as good as people say it is. Have you even played it? Wait, but if the game really makes it to the global rankings, wouldn't he be eligible for the Silver Game Award? Silver Game Awards? I stared at the name for a moment, but nothing rang a bell. In the end, I did a quick search, and that's when I realized what it was. So there's an award like that. The main criteria to be eligible for the Silver Game Award were to crack the top 200 global ranking at least once. It was an extremely prestigious award, second only to the Gold Game Awards, which recognized the best game of the year, and it brought massive fame to the game that won it. In fact, many of those who won the Silver Game Award went on to become some of the best developers in the industry. It says right here that the main criteria for one to be eligible for the Silver Game Awards is for the studio working on it to be less than 2 years old, with a team of less than 10 people. Thinking about it, I fit the criteria quite perfectly. My studio was not even 1 year old, and my team was composed of 4 people. Well, that was unless I took into account the conductors and the others, but they were more like an extension of me, if anything. Aim. I continued reading the award description. There's monetary compensation for the winner, going at around $5 million, and each participant must come from a different island, meaning that. I paused, meaning I need to have the best game on the island for anyone who fits that criteria. I stood in silence for a short moment before closing off the page. There was no need for me to think about being the best for those who fit the criteria. At the moment, my game was on its way to being the best on the island. It was even possible for me to be nominated for the Golden Awards, but there was an issue. One couldn't be nominated for both the Golden and Silver Awards. They had to give up one. Well, it's not a hard choice. To me, the answer was obvious. The Silver Awards. What was the point in participating in the Golden Awards, knowing that my chances of winning were extremely low? Might as well participate in the Silver Awards, where I'm more likely to win. My mind was made up. I planned to sign up for the Silver Awards to see if I could get my hands on the award, or, more specifically, the $5 million. I wanted the money. Still, I should be making a good amount from this game. The sales were incredible, and I could see that the momentum was still there. Fidgeting with my hand, I opened my phone once again, and as I did, I couldn't help but notice several headlines. Malavia Times' new disturbing game makes its way into the market. A game that boasts about getting its own players to kill themselves. Is this safe for the community, especially in times when depression is at an all-time high? New daily, shocking, and disturbing game. Is this the current state of the gaming market? A game that makes one kill themselves. It is reported that several hundred people have already been admitted to hospitals regarding the game. Should the BUA do something about it? I pursed my lips. Well, I scratched the side of my cheek. It wasn't like I didn't expect such a result. With that said, I didn't think it would even go so far as to get people admitted to the hospital. My horror game. It really wasn't that scary. Space. Severed Stars Guild Master Office. Staring at the monitor in front of him and seeing the numerous articles that were created about the new game developed by Seth, the Guild Master couldn't help but smile. Although he hadn't tried the game, Seth had personally given him a copy. This was part of the deal he had with the guild. Neither of the two was against the arrangement, and seeing the result of the game Seth had released, the guild master's smile only grew. He's exceeded my expectations. This game, it was an excellent game. He had already gotten a few guild members to try it, and the results were splendid. These games were indeed perfect for training the recruits, and the best part was that they didn't cause any deaths. The guild master could already foresee the future of the guild with the games, and the thought made him appreciative of what Seth was doing. And so, hello. He made a certain call. Yes, make sure to take down all of the reports going around about the game. Yes, make it quick and minimize their impact. Thank you. The guild master hung up the call a moment later. With the same smile on his face, he looked at his monitor. Not even a minute after he hung up, the article was gone. A pair of dimples formed on his face. I hope you enjoy my gift. This was him rewarding Seth for his usefulness. Chapter 399, Night of Terror 1. There was another piece of explosive news that made the rounds across the entire island. Breaking foul play. Nightmare Forge Studios, a company famously known for its latest game release, Death Company, has been recorded stating that they are trying to sabotage the career of another developer. What is the truth to this statement? Breaking, there's no real truth to the statement. The recording comes from one of our rogue employees. None of us was aware of his intentions, and we immediately fired him. Our company does not need to rely on such cheap tricks. Breaking, stock for Nightmare Forge Studio plunges after controversy. Will they be able to get out of this predicament? One news article after another started to be released. Clips of what had happened during the stream had also gone viral across the entire web, and the backlash the studio was facing was quite severe. Have you contacted the journalists? Tell them to run a segment on the misunderstanding. Any publication is fine. A voice shouted within the confines of a certain office. The CEO's face was black, unable to hide the humiliation and anger across his face. Bang! Smashing the phone down, he cursed it a couple more times. Fucking bullshit. He turned his head in the direction of where a man stood, his face lowered in silence. The CEO's face twisted. Do you understand what you've done? Oh, yes. Daniel didn't shrink away from his responsibilities. He had indeed made a mistake. But I wasn't aware that he'd be so stupid to take the call in the middle of a stream. I've already contacted the lawyers of our team to make him pay for the damages that his carelessness has caused. No shit. The CEO slammed his hand against the table. That bastard. He needs to pay for his idiocy. We pay him to help us, not to screw us over. Veins pulsed at the side of his neck as he shouted at the top of his lungs. It wasn't so often that he'd be so enraged, but the damage that his company's image had sustained from the incident was almost irreparable. They had only just barely managed to come out of a bankruptcy, and yet. Arg! The CEO let out another angry shout, ruffling his hair in annoyance. He eventually managed to calm down as he turned his attention back to his assistant. How is the situation with the update going? About that, Daniel stared at the CEO, lowering his head once more. We were in the process of finishing the testing phase. As you know, we have several dozen people testing the update. The programs all appear to be working in function with no issues with them. It's just that. We delayed it due to the situation that has currently taken place. Release it. Huh? Daniel stared at the CEO, whose eyes had turned bloodshot. You say that you've tested it and all the programs are in function, right? Then what are you waiting for? Release it. The CEO slammed his hand down on the table again, making the poor assistant flinch. Seeing the rage on the CEO's face, Daniel could do nothing but lower his head and nod. Yes, I'll get to it. Actually, it wasn't so simple. The testing was done, and the update was flowing smoothly. Adding the programs to the game was extremely easy. The one that they were truly interested in was the music piece. Unlike the copy that they had, the effect of the original was much better. Adding it to the update was extremely easy. The main issue was that, given the current backlash, proceeding with the update would make things worse for them. Still, the CEO's decisions are absolute. Daniel's eyes turned resolute as he walked towards the programming area. The update for Death Company was released an hour after. Space. The entire day was a festive one. The numbers for the game continued to climb, and by the time it was time for dinner, sales had increased by another 20,000. This unprecedented release brought immense joy to the team. Cheers. Let's go. We all sat in a nice restaurant near the guild. For once, we decided to splurge a little. I still had a bit of money to invite them over for dinner. This is the second night in a row that I'm drinking, but this feels so much different compared to, yesterday, Noah muttered, his face nearly pressed against the table as he took a sip of his beer, only for it to spill all over the table instead of his mouth. Oi, watch it. Careful, you bastard. What? Seeing the scene, I couldn't help but smile a little. This was the first time in a while that I felt a little bit happy. Of course, I knew that things were going to become quite hectic yet again. However, I planned on taking these few moments to relax, especially since I knew that the Fourth Order mission was finally coming up. There was only a week left until I had to complete the cult mission, and the closer the deadline drew, the heavier my heart became. I was still far from reaching the Fourth Order, and while I had been collecting some fragments here and there, it was still not enough. I might just ask the guild master at this point, to hell if he asks what it is for. I was sure that he wouldn't mind giving them to me. With that being said, I knew that it wouldn't come for cheap. The game is going well. I've taken care of that annoying stream. Nightmare Forge Studios will soon be taken care of as well. I've gotten the guild master on my side. I no longer need to worry about the rat. For a moment, I felt like I was on top of the world. Since when had things ever been going this smoothly for me? Staring at the drink in my hand, I took a quiet sip, feeling the soft burn lingering at the back of my throat. I was just about to say something to my employees when something tickled my ears. Pausing, I took out my phone and checked Doc. It's here. Nightmare Forge Studios' latest update. I stood up from my spot and reached for my coat that hung by the corner of the room. Boss, are you going somewhere? Boss. Don't leave, boss. Everyone immediately noticed my actions and tried to stop me from leaving, but I just raised my hand to show them my phone. I'm just going out to take a phone call. Don't worry, I'll be back in several minutes. Hello? You should have said so. Silly boss. Seeing how drunk they were, I shook my head before going out of the restaurant and walking into a more remote area with no one present. Leaning back against the wall, I took out a cigarette and smoked it. Puff. It wasn't often that I smoked, but in the times I did, it was to help me calm my nerves as a tall and stitched-up figure appeared before me. Without looking in its direction, I mumbled. Do it. Puff. Make them pay for stealing from you. Chapter 400, Night of Terror 2. The conductor stood in silence, its gaze hovering in Seth's direction as he took another drag of the cigarette. It was dark in the alley, and as a soft breeze brushed the surroundings, Seth took another drag of the cigarette, his eyes darkening alongside the night. Puff, do as you wish. I'm not going to interfere. There used to be a time when he would have thought about the consequences of his actions, but lately, he found himself thinking less and less of such matters. I've been liking the peace quite a lot lately. Had I acted faster, I probably would have gotten rid of the rat faster, and I wouldn't have had to take such drastic measures with the guild master. I also would have been able to handle Nightmare Forge Studios a lot faster. At the end of the day, it all came down to the fact that he was a pushover. Indeed, he was one. He was both a coward and a pushover. This much he was aware of. But at the same time, he was slowly changing. He could feel the change. Puff, taking the last drag of the cigarette, he tossed the cigarette to the ground and lifted his head to stare at the conductor. Don't hold back. Re-yep. A wet rip echoed across the surroundings, the conductor's stitched coming apart as its lips pulled into a grotesque smile. Very well. Seth's gaze continued to hover over the conductor for the briefest of moments, before he turned around and stomped on the cigarette on the ground. His body faded from the alley a moment later. And soon, the conductor made its move. What did music mean to the conductor? It meant everything to him. In that case, how did it feel when it knew that someone stole from it? Rage. Unbelievable rage. It wanted nothing more than to tear apart the ones responsible for stealing its music. How dare they? But the conductor was no longer the same as it had been. Its powers were greatly weakened, and it was no longer in full control of its decisions. It had given up those rights after being defeated by Seth. As such, the conductor could only hold back its rage. But each day that passed, the rage it felt only grew. It grew to the point where it wanted to destroy everything that was within its sight. And thankfully, do as you please. He was finally unleashed. Upon entering a certain room, the lights flicked on. He entered the room in silence, his eyes sweeping over the scattered instruments before he made his way to the podium, where his baton rested, waiting for him. Picking it up, he slowly lifted it in the air. The room fell completely still. But within the stillness, the conductor could hear it. Countless melodies drifted through the air, each one concealing the true tune that belonged to him. His lips curled wider and his eyes slowly tore open, revealing two hollow, depthless voids. And then, swoosh, he slashed the baton down. Regardless of how far he was, his music was always within his control. Space. The update released by Nightmare Forge Studios was met with significant backlash from some members of the internet. They really released the update. Are they really that desperate? I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. They are currently facing significant backlash, and the best way to address it is to send out the update. That will get people to talk more about the game than their situation. It's not like this is the first scummy company out there. You're right, still I'm not buying it. Boycott this shit. Boycott. Many were calling for a boycott, but the movement was hardly significant. The update was still downloaded by many, with several dozen others purchasing the game altogether. To make matters worse, many of the people who had been criticizing the game or the update suddenly found their posts removed or deleted. Silenced. They were all being silenced. In a certain room. Shit. Darwin sat alone in his room, gnawing at his nails as the screen before him flickered, the update slowly downloading. His hair was a tangled mess, and dark circles clung stubbornly beneath his tired eyes. Despite everything that I've done for them, they're doing this to me. Shit, it was just a simple mistake. It's nothing too big. Darwin stared at the papers in front of him. They were the lawsuits sent over to him by Nightmare Forge Studios following the situation. Darwin understood that they had no real legal grounds, but he also understood that this wasn't their goal. They were trying to destroy him with legal fees and time. They were planning on dragging it out in order to make him suffer. Shit. Darwin cursed once more. Thankfully, there was a way out. So long as I can help them regain their reputation. Yeah, I can do that. His following had grown significantly following the previous stream. In fact, over 50,000 viewers were waiting for him to start his stream. Who's who? Darwin took several deep breaths, taking some time to fix his hair and putting light makeup under his eyes to hide the dark circles before forcing out a smile and turning on the stream. How are you all doing? I can see that a lot of you are excited for the upcoming stream. Nice. He glanced at the chat, and the smile on his face nearly faltered. However, he still managed to retain it as he focused on the update that had just finished downloading. Today I'll be playing the newest update of Nightmare Forge Studios game like I previously mentioned. I honestly can't wait to try it. I've been told it's a really amazing update with all new features and modes. Let's give it a go. The entire time Darwin spoke, he didn't once talk about the situation. He kept ignoring it, and as a result, the chat kept exploding. Even the viewers started to grow as a result. Let's start. Darwin started the game a moment later. He was already familiar with the game, and as such, was able to easily handle the first few parts without any problems. He also took the time to explain how the game worked to the new viewers. The game's music echoed in the background as he played. What he didn't notice as he played the game was the sudden itch on his neck. Scratch. At first, it was easy to ignore it. However, as the game progressed, the itch only grew. Scratch. Huh, what the hell? It wasn't just his neck this time. His back, his cheeks, his entire body started to itch. He wasn't the only one experiencing such an itch. Even the viewers were no different, their entire bodies starting to itch. Scratch. What the hell? What's going on? It grew more and more unbearable with each passing second, but this was merely the start. Suddenly, the room started to tilt. Hyuka. Darwin held onto the chair, trying his best to keep himself from falling. What the? Left to right. Right to left. It suddenly felt as though the entire world was tilting. But that wasn't even the worst part. Soon, By thump. Darwin felt a quiet sense of dread, the room suddenly chilling as his entire body started to shudder. Suddenly, his eyes drew to the monitor in front of him. The game was still on, but he appeared to notice something within it. A figure, tall and lanky. It stared straight at him, hands raised. Ha. Darwin's breath grew more and more ragged, his expression twisting. What? What in the world was happening? And soon, the figure slashed down. Ha. He suddenly found himself running towards the screen, his face planted right on it. Crack. A crack sounded and the screen cracked. But it wasn't over. Bang, bang. Darwin smashed his head over the monitor again, this time harder. Ha, it hurts. Soon his screams turned into laughs. It hurts, how. Bang, 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 bang. He wasn't the only one to act like this. Almost everyone watching or playing the game experienced the same thing. Bang, bang. That night, terror reigned. It was a night of terror.